comfortable with and what they think will be the best option. Ultimately, we know the board will make that final decision, and we will put together what we think is best practices based on all the information that we do gather. So up to this point, our administrators have been meeting. We've been reviewing and discussing options. We will continue to do that. I'll talk a little bit about that more as we go on. But the key things that we're looking at, and I know I've heard from my board, I've been listening as we've been holding our school board meetings and just in opportunities to speak with you all, that our key issue is safety. I think at the end of the day, we've all decided that if our students are not safe, it really takes away a lot from these other things. Number 2 priority or key issue would be equity. And in this case, when I talk about equity, what I'm saying is we want our students to receive the same things that allow them to be successful that all other students will receive. So we will be talking about making sure that there is computer access, for our students, making sure that they have a computer if we have to do remote learning, making sure that our teachers are prepared to teach them that way. I mean, equity is saying we want our students to all get the same opportunities that students in any other district would get and students building to building will get. And we will try to mitigate circumstances that are happening as needed, even if it deals with food issues, mental health issues, whatever type of things come up during this time, we want to help provide some type of solution for that family. The third thing would be convenience. And by convenience, I mean, as we gather information, we have to look at things like families that have high school students and elementary students, and maybe they depend on the high school student to watch their younger ones. So that's a convenience to the parent, but it's very important, right? It's a convenience in one way, but it also falls into safety and equity. If a parent can't afford to have childcare at that level where they do it 2 or 3 different ways in 1 week and for different children, we want to make this as easy to do and reach as possible for our community. So we want to look at issues that, at some place we may say, well, that's really not a necessity, it's a convenience, but it might be the difference in whether or not a child is actually showing up at school or being able to get online. So we are going to try to make whatever decisions we make as convenient for our community as possible, and also for our staff. We have to take into account the fact that many of them have children in school, that there are a lot of things that they have going on. So we can't really just set a plan in a vacuum, because we have to reach out and find out what are the true needs of the community and our staff as we make our plan. And then operations, and I don't mean that that's like last on the list, but operations understands that once we say, what our priorities are and what needs to be done, then they will help us figure out how to make that happen. Okay, so what does that look like as far as how many buses we would need and how many routes we would need? And is it realistic? Can we do it? I mean, we may come up with a plan that for administrators seems perfectly acceptable, and then we find out from operations that for some reason it may not be realistic. So operations is definitely going to be a part of this team and a part of the conversations that are being had. They do a lot. They will do many things for us that will make or break this plan. As you all know, when we talk about operations in our district, we're talking about our technology piece, we're talking about our cleaning piece, we're talking about our food service. So all of those things will impact what we do with our students. I'm really excited. I think that, so far, I would say this is going along well. I have had the opportunity to meet with TMEA, and they know that we will be talking with them along with other staff members, administrators, board members, community members as we move forward with their plan. So now what I have are the basic ways that we can look at as we come back, and I will give credit to my high school team. They work diligently, and I have used a lot of the information that they have shared with me on this. Our elementary teams and middle school, they've also been meeting with us. Everybody has submitted like some original ideas, and we are focusing in now. I just like the way this was set up, so that is what I've chosen to share with you at this time. So the first way we can return is what's considered a full return. All students come to school. In this traditional way, they come back, they have a regular schedule. We try to get them in 5 days a week, following the regular calendar. What would be the concessions that would be made? Students and staff would have to be tested before returning and follow the CDC guidelines for symptoms. And, by tested, it would mean, the opportunity potentially to use thermometers and check people's temperatures prior to them coming in to make sure no one has a fever, that type of thing. Students and staff would wear masks at all times. There would be the cleaning that I talked about. It would happen frequently and it would happen daily. So what does that look like for us? And I do have pros and cons on the next page I'll show you. But as far as safety is concerned, we sort of feel like that's sort of low because we really don't know for sure if everyone will check their temperatures prior to coming in. What if something happens and we don't know and we're not told what's going on? We have everyone there together. This virus spreads. It appears to be pretty easily. And so safety in the traditional return is low. Learning, we said, would be high because the teachers would be able to do what they do. And they're good at that. And so they could teach the kids, so learning in this scenario would be what we would consider high. So the pros are students would learn as usual. Our students with IEPs would be accommodated. Right now, that's a bit of a struggle. We're working on it to get those accommodations met for sure. The cons, making sure all staff and students have their temperatures taken prior to school starting, and students coming to school daily without their mask. What happens if they lose them? So that's option one. Option two is what's called blended learning. Students will take in-person classes 1 or 2 days a week at the school. The remaining days of learning will be done at home. We make sure students got technology and staff would receive PD on how to present and provide this blended learning. At this point, we would have to take into consideration, as I mentioned earlier, that some high school students would have to have their schedules coincide with their younger siblings because of childcare issues. Safety in this situation is medium. It's not as bad as everybody being together at one time, but it's also not the safest situation. Academics, potentially low. It's a lot of learning on how to provide the blended learning, but also when the students come 1 or 2 days a week, how will that work? Can we potentially make this work better? Yes, but we're just talking about if we were to have to step out right now and do blended learning, we will need the opportunity, which may happen if we were to start school after Labor Day, which is one of the things we're talking about, to mitigate some of these situations in the learning aspect. So the pros here, as you can see, and I won't read through all of them, but basically students being able to meet with their teachers, which is always wonderful. They're going to learn more technology skills, and it can be collaborative. Cons is there going to be internet access at home for students? Will we have to lose staff? It will take more prep time for our teachers. Can we provide the support services that our students need? Okay. The third option is a virtual or distance learning situation. This would have our students learn from home, totally home. So teachers would be using the Google Classroom, and they would provide their lessons through a webcam. They could pre-record lessons as well. Some cases we have students who are already using Apex. That, of course, could continue. So safety in this situation would be high, assuming that our students stay in their home state only in connection with their families. And so that's why we say high. It potentially could be medium because we already know that they've started high skills practice for athletics. And starting on Monday, they will also be able to do some contact sport practice and some games and things. So I would say safety may really be more medium than high. Academics in this situation is potentially low. And that's because, again, we have to make sure that at home, the kids are able to do what they need to do and that our teachers are able to provide the students with what they need at the level of excellence that we have been talking about. So the pros here is that it is a combination of structure and freedom. They can access their work at any time. Let's say a teacher does, record her lessons, and so they'll be available. Opportunity to learn new skills, could cut the budget, and it's a paradigm shift. And maybe we do need that, so that would be a pro. The cons, internet access. The teacher not always able to give immediate feedback. We're hoping to provide lessons as we've done in summer school where the teachers actually are face-to-face with the students. And so they could provide immediate feedback, but how soon can we make that available for all students? Lack of IT knowledge and literacy. And as educators, we know there's always something to learn. It gets a little bit more It changes, let's say that. So you think you have something down and then it changes. Being able to accommodate our students who are on IEPs. Will we be able to do that at the level that we want? And so again, I'm not going to read everything, but you can see that there's a list of cons. So what are the next steps? The next steps, as I see them, from my personal, somewhat selfish position, is to get my administration team all together. Dr. Davis, who is on our call today, will be starting officially July 1st. As you will know, or it is come out that we have posted for a director of student services, which is a vital piece that is needed on my administrative team. So then we already have Mr. Howard, who's assistant superintendent and director of operations. We have Mrs. Miner, who is our curriculum director, and we have Miss Allen, who, as everyone knows, is our treasurer. Once we get that team together and we start to have our meetings, that is going to be very beneficial. Also, we will continue to gather input from the community, from our staff, and from also our administrators. And our administrative team will continue to work together. We're going to send out, as I mentioned before, another survey to the community to get increased participation. We didn't get the numbers that we wanted initially. There's also going to be another staff survey sent out by TMEA. Administrators will continue to meet, as I said, to firm up our plan. Once we get that direction, whatever it's going to be from the governor, if there's more direction from the health department, and if there's direction from the board, we're going to use all of those things. Ultimately, We're going to do this as expediently as possible. As a parent, I know that when summer hits, you want to know what's happening. How will my student be going to school? What things do I need to provide? And so we're going to get that done as soon as possible so that we can let everyone know how and when our students will return. So at this point, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to that long presentation. But I hope it was useful. I hope you got the information that you need. Now I'm going to see if I can figure out how to get out of here.
Thank you. It was a very good presentation. Board, do you have any questions for Dr. Cosby? Okay. Also, Dr. Cosby, you mentioned Dr. Davis is with us, and if she would like to say hello and make an introduction, that would be awesome.
I know that she is going to do a presentation at the time, where we had asked Mr. Howard to. Well, she has so graciously said that she would speak at that point. So if it's okay with you, can we hold till then?
Oh, absolutely. That's a welcome change. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
No
okay,
problem.
well, we're going to move right into the building reports, and we are 1 minute ahead of time. So let's start with the ELC. Mr. Warner.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So can I ask just how you want this? We had the about 7 questions or so that you listed out. Do you just want me to move through those questions? I understand it was kind of an informal conversation, so we just kind of move through those questions. Is that acceptable?
That is more than acceptable. Mr. Warner, it's whatever you want it to be.
All right, sounds good.
All right.
So your first question was about what do we think that we did well during the COVID-19 transition? And I thought we did a really nice job at the ELC with communication. We were communicating via, I made my own Facebook page and it got people on that. And so I was communicating there. We were in Dojo, Class Dojo, which is one of our parent communication techniques that we use. And so we were sending out, it was thousands of messages. So we were in constant communication there. And then also, some of the all calls and doing that. So we were in a lot of communication with our families and our parents. And I thought that went really well too. And one of the things I'll talk about later is some of the challenges are the technology, our communities' access to technology and the connectivity too. And so we identified really early that was going to be an issue for us, especially even when you had it. Sometimes, you had one computer in a household and maybe 3 or 4 kids, and they were all vying for a time for that computer. And that was an issue. So we really tried to set up a system that would not require our kids to use those computers all the time, especially since we didn't send any of them home. So what would happen is our teacher leaders would create lesson plans, and they would create activities for kids to do that maybe could be used with a phone, and then they would upload or send pictures of the completed projects or the reading that they would do for a video to their teacher. And again, like Dr. Cosby said, we made it through. It was not was the best thing, but we made it through. We were able to make some good inroads into it. So I thought that we, did that fairly well, considering how little time we had to prepare for it. And then last thing I thought that went really well is the kindergarten recognition. That was really fun, and it was a great chance to connect with our kids on that day. That just went really well, and it was really well received, I think, by our parents. I wish I had close-ups of the parents' faces as much as I had of the students' faces, because they were just beaming, watching their kids jump out of the car and run up and get their certificate and that kind of stuff. That was really cool. I thought that went really well as well. What we've been doing since the COVID outbreak to assist teachers, we've been exploring some additional curriculum, additional methods to deliver a curriculum. And one thing that we have looked at is Seesaw. And the curriculum team and I have been talking amongst each other, and then also with my teacher leaders. and then also with area principals. And while Google Classroom is having some success, we're doing that. When you're looking at preschool to K to 1 kids, you really need to hear them reading back to you. And there needs to be some kind of interaction. That's just really important, that speaking and listening part of learning to read. So we're kind of looking at a way to do that, and Seesaw provides a platform for us to do this. So we're kind of exploring some of those options there. And I know Summer School is also looking at some of the options that they're doing using Google Classrooms. But that's one of our challenges. If we go some kind of online going into the fall, it's going to be a challenge for us, because that interaction between teacher and student, when you're teaching students to learn to read, that's really important that we have some face-to-face contact with them and we get to hear them, what they're doing there. Our biggest challenge with the online is the community's connectivity and access to resources, technology, computers. That is a very big barrier and obstacle for us. And so we'll need to really think hard about how we're going to mitigate some of those things. And also just in learning itself, I just mentioned it, preschool K1, the social emotional learning standards and the needs that they have, those kids, they really have to be in school. I'm really hoping that we can find a solution that lands our students in school, because they need, you're learning way more than just ABCs in kindergarten, first grade. You're learning how to resolve conflicts and how to exist in the school system, how to, to self-regulate in crowds. And, those are really important skills they have. Some of our kids, when you're smiling, this means I'm happy. And when I'm frowning, this means I'm sad. And, those are simple things, but are important skills that our kids need to learn. And so, and you do that when you're together. So I'm really hoping that we can find ways to get our kids in school, because that's a big challenge. Some of the big successes that we had with the online teaching, our staff, I think, really increased their tech skills. And so I had several students or several staff members that they just didn't know how to do some of those things. Well, they had to learn really fast to get their kids involved with things like that. So they were doing online readings and posting that, and they were doing virtual meetings and Zoom meetings with their students and meeting to, one-on-one. We had staff members that would schedule calls with individual students to make sure they're walking them through some of that tutoring aspect of whatever that assignment was. And so that was not something that we were doing before. And so I thought that was a big success. And then the potential that we have for the high quality instructional videos to be used when we come back to the room. And what I mean is this, we're teaching some kind of skill for reading. And so the teacher makes a video of it. And while we're using that in the online instruction, when we get back into the classroom, that can be a station within our literacy groups that you can come and watch your teacher teach something while they have somebody in person that, working with a small group of students. And so I think to be able to use those kind of blended learning options, even when we're in person, I think that's a really, we used to call it flipping the classroom. And with everything else that's happened, we kind of lost a little bit of sight of that, but I think that's a good opportunity that we have. In cases where teachers no longer can fill the whole school day with virtual instruction, what do you think should be done to fill the void? I think this project-based learning approach, where students can build something, where they can demonstrate something, then capture that on video, where they can upload it and comment and assess those things. I think that would be a really great option. I think our challenge now, if we're all online, is to make something that's really relevant to our kids, culturally relevant, relevant to the learning, that's respectful learning, and not just busy work. And I know my son and my goddaughter, and as I was watching, neither one of them are in Trotwood, but as I saw the work they did, some of it was just it wasn't respectful of who they are or with their time. It wasn't respectful of the level of work that they really needed to do. And I think that's whether they're 5 or they're 15, I think that our challenge is going to be to design instruction, design projects that can impact, that are meaningful to them, that deal with things that make a difference in their lives on a daily basis. And so, it might be less time in front of the computer, more time doing some work, in your house, in your community, in your reading, and then bringing it back to present a project that you've done. And so, you've all done this long enough to know there's a limit of how much time that you can spend doing this. And you start to tank out at about an hour and a half if you're lucky. And for us to expect our kids all day, every day to be on doing this is a lot. So I'm hoping that we can find some solutions there. Some aha moments or takeaways, the importance of educators, the importance of the relationships that our teachers, that our staff bring to students' lives. That's so important. And when we saw, kids crying online because they couldn't come to school and see their friends, but really to see their teachers and to get the love and support that they give every day. That was an aha moment, something that we knew, but, to see it played out was, I think, is really powerful. Another takeaway, I just have a fear for the social emotional pieces of students, especially of our youngest ones. I'm scared for what this is all going to do for them, to not be able to get the fundamentals of existing as a community, as a school family, and what that does to their relationships, what it does to social boundaries and those kinds of things. I'm very concerned about that piece of it. Very concerned about the need that our kids have to have connections with adults. And if you come from a great, wonderful family and those are your connections, then you're okay. But many of our students do not exist in that kind of environment, and they need the support and the structure and the nurturing that comes from being in a school with people who care about them as well. So I'm scared for that piece of it, and I'm concerned for things moving forward. And my last takeaway was something I did not expect. As we finished, many of my staff members, and they would go out in twos and threes. They would go out and visit the kids at their houses and bring them a certificate. They would bring them a bag or something like that. And, they came away with this like radiance from doing that. And there's this whole kind of movement at the ELC about how can we make home visits like a regular part of what we're doing, and they learn so much about their kids. They learn so much about their families. And the interactions that they have with the families and their kids was so meaningful and authentic for them. They want to make that a regular part of what they do. And so I thought that was fantastic. And so we're going to have a whole probably group that's going to support each other and do that. Make sure we do it in the safe way, obviously, and everything like that. But those home visits were really beneficial. And so that was a huge takeaway. And lastly, about what the board can do to assist us during this time. And I think just to get that commitment that you all have to review and adopt those board policies that put us in the best position in these challenging times. I mean, I know you're in connection with other boards throughout the state and probably throughout the nation, and just continue to monitor those policies to make sure that whether we're talking about hiring and retention or safety of students, just continuing to review and adopt those policies to stay up. That's probably the what jumped out of my mind the most at how you could help.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Board, any questions? Yeah, that was a very good summary along the lines of bringing.
I don't have a question.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr.
Sorry.
Spears.
I don't have a question. It's more of a comment.
Go right ahead.
I wholeheartedly support what Mr. Warner is saying about the importance of that connectivity that those kids need. And I agree with the sentiment that I hope that we can find a way to bring all of our kids back so they get the fundamental social and emotional and psychological well-being or welfare that they need, especially kids the age of my kids who need that type of social and emotional connectivity. They're not just the teachers, but their friends as well. So that was really, I really enjoyed hearing that. And I hope that we can come to some sort of agreement so we can see that happens this fall.
Thank you, Mr. Scares.
I just want to say I really appreciate that the teachers did go out and do those home visits. I'm sure that was really, really uplifting and a bright spot for our students during this time. So thank you. And thank you for the nightly readings to the students. So
yeah.
I think it was good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we enjoyed doing that. That was fun.
Any others?
Yes, I enjoyed your report, Mr. Warner. It sounds like you did just an excellent job, and really with the babies, so to speak, in the district, it is really, I think, really critical that they have an opportunity to interact and exchange with each other and staff, because it is really the foundational developmental years for not just their personal growth, but also their educational growth, because this is, for the most part, the beginning of their educational process. And I share your concern about trying to get everybody back to some degree, or however we can do it, the maximum way we can do it, because that's critical. And, just like with the educational process, if they start off behind, the odds are they're going to stay behind. And so socially, it'd be the same thing. And I think that's one of the plagues in our community overall, is our lack of social development and growth sometimes. And I think that's very, very critical. So well done. And I really appreciate your presentation, well spoken, and a lot of ideas and things we need to try to address.
Thank you.
I just have one comment. Great report. What stuck out for me was when you talked about the competing time with the computers. That was one thing that happened in my house between me and Mr. Myron, because we have a really new computer, and that's the one we both want to use. And so it's
Right.
like, who's more important, me or him, and of course, and then if I have a Zoom meeting and then he's on doing something for school, then the internet connectivity was kind of spotty. And so we're trying to determine, okay, who has priority here? And so even with not just siblings, but parents who are working from home, that's going to be a big concern as well, especially if you have two parents working from home and then you have a kid in school. That's going to be a huge issue. And so we need to really figure something out. So thanks for bringing that up.
One of the things that kind of pulled at my heart this whole time, and Dr. Cosby already mentioned it in her presentation, is the matters of equity that all of this COVID has brought out, not just in Trotwood and Miami Valley, just all over the nation, where the haves have had what they needed and it moved okay. And the have-nots really just suffered. And even with even with the food program, you saw that played out a little bit, because they needed food, but they still didn't always have the means to get where they needed to go to get the food, and that's just one small aspect of those kind of things. And that matter of equity, I'm glad Dr. Cosby, you either had it at 1 or 2, something like that. Like, that's where it belongs, because whether you're talking about computers or food or opportunities to be safe, those matters of equity are just gigantic, and we've got to have that foremost in our minds.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Warner. We appreciate your report. It was excellent. We're going to move on to Madison Park. Ms. Sterner.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see everyone this beautiful morning. I will kind of follow suit with what Nate did in his presentation. As far as what went well in our transition to online teaching, let's see. We kind of determined that, we needed to have a single form of communication, not really a single form, but a consistent form of communication that kind of aligned with the ELC and with Westbrook Village. So we did try to explore some things like Dojo and Class Tag, and kind of see which platforms best communicated with parents and allowed them to have that two-way communication on a regular basis. So, in our explorations, we did come up with our Class Dojo, and that really helped with parents being able to communicate back and forth. We incorporated the Google Classroom right off the bat. That was, I think, kind of universal for the 2nd through 5th grade buildings. We found that, as we went along, that the way some teachers were doing it and the way other teachers were doing it, there were pros and cons for both ways. So as we went along, we kind of aligned with some expectations of what should be taking place on the Google Classroom platform. Because initially, the kids, they had multiple assignments, a high number of hours that they were spending on the computer, which was not conducive to what they were really able to do. So we learned real quick that we had to incorporate some other things, and we started with face-to-face learning in some of the classrooms, and we did some recorded lessons that were shared on a regular basis, where the teachers, if it was a phonics lesson, we had a teacher that was really doing the phonics lesson. It was something that kids could see and learn from on a daily basis, and that was like consistent through the grade level. Let's see. We also incorporated a Facebook page to try and give the students the opportunity to see the teachers on a more regular basis, doing some fun things, and just trying to keep their spirits up more or less as they went through this process. Because, the one thing we wanted to do is we wanted to keep the kids excited about learning, and, hopeful that hopefully we could get back by the end of the year. Unfortunately we didn't do that, but we did try to maintain that contact with the kids. What have you been doing since the outbreak to assist teachers in moving to online teaching? We've tried to look into some different resources that would accommodate online teaching moving forward. Some things that were more student friendly. We've looked into Reading A to Z, and again, that's something that aligns with Westbrook Village. It has an online platform that can differentiate for the kids. So we have started really investing some time in learning how that program works, so that we can be ready to use it next year. Biggest challenges, I would say the biggest challenge was making sure that we were doing our very best to get every student online and engaged in online learning. That continued to be our biggest challenge throughout the period. And, as we went along, teachers were texting parents, teachers were calling parents. They were really trying to help them in any way that they could. We had a technology coordinator, Mr. V, that, anytime somebody had a problem, he had a Google number. All of the teachers ended up with a Google number, and he would assist them any way that he could. And he was very timely in getting with those parents. And I think, he did a very nice job with the technology support. The social emotional support, I think, is something that was jeopardized with the online teaching, especially, a lot of those students, unfortunately, we were unable to get in contact with the parents. So, providing that service was not always possible. So, those kids may have, really suffered in the long run the most because they didn't have that regular support. Biggest success stories for online teaching. Our teachers were very ready and willing to jump in and do whatever was needed to provide the best services for the students. A lot of them attended professional development the entire time to learn how to, increase their technology skills. I think their desire to continue learning was very commendable. Nobody just sat back and said, "No, I can't do this. I'm going to just put my assignments up on Google Classroom, and if they participate, they participate." I think teachers were diligent about getting everyone involved. Also, I think that with the teachers and the families that were really involved in the online learning, it built very positive relationships. The teachers really got to see what the family life was like, and the families got to see what the teacher's life was all about. So, in both directions, it was a positive learning experience for everybody. So, I think when you're on with your child on the computer and you're seeing what they're going through and seeing what the teacher is going through, and they have 10 other people in the classroom, they gain a little bit of respect for how hard they really are working to make connections with kids. So I really did like seeing the relationship building with the families. And I think that's something that will carry forward. I think the teachers realize that, if I can get with every family and build that relationship, it's going to be a much more positive experience for everybody. Let's see. In cases where most teachers can no longer fill the day with virtual instruction, whether they were on the computer or not, their day was filled. When we talk about how online learning has kind of affected the teacher's routine, it's not as easy as it may look for some people on the outside. The teachers, if they're not on the computer, the parents are calling them. They're calling the parents. So their time is very minimal that they're having any downtime. And teachers always expressed. I had parents calling me at 5 and 6 o'clock in the evening, and the teachers were quite willing to answer the phone and take calls all times of the day. Aha moments. Let's see. I just was very glad to see how everybody took responsibility for the process and dove in and did everything that they could to make it a positive experience. I think, like I said, the value of student-teacher relationships was great, and some of the positive and creative ways that teachers adapted their skills to meet the needs of the kids. So they did a very nice job. My screen just, last question. How can you guys assist us? I think continue to have an open ear. I think that you guys have always provided a great platform for the principals to have a voice. I feel like you guys are listeners, and you will, if we all continue to go over, the pros and the cons and what can work and what's not working, and come together to develop the best plan, I think that is going to help everyone. I always think that, our kids need more support. The teachers in the classrooms, in the technology platform, one thing that they found advantageous over the summer in the Summer Rise program was having an extra voice in that classroom, whether it was to help 3 kids in another online classroom with something that they were working on, that needed more assistance. I think, that did prove to be very helpful, especially, I don't know, we had a parent focus group the other night with the Summer Rise program. And, the parents were able to share what they saw as being valuable. And it was very enlightening to hear a lot of their comments. And I don't know if that was recorded or not, but you would hear a lot of great things of what was happening with the Summer Rise program. So overall, keep your ears open and your minds creative. And I'm sure that we will work through this and provide the best opportunities for our students. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Excellent. Did you say parent focus group that you?
Yeah, that was I think Miss Miner and Miss Kiara Williams put that together, and the parents were able to, give us some insight on what they thought was working with the online school, the Summer Rise program, and the advantages, the disadvantages, all of those things. So it was a good opportunity to get with the parents.
What was the overall consensus from the focus group, from the parents?
I think they found it very advantageous for the kids. They said, for some students, in some situations, it was a better opportunity for kids to learn because they were not distracted by other things in the classroom. The kids were, able to focus on what it was that they were doing. If they had questions, they were able to get the one-on-one, face-to-face communication with the teacher. And it was a positive experience.
It's awesome. I'm so happy to hear that because one thing that I know I shared with Dr. Cosby and also have had discussions in the past with the board was having these parent advisory groups, and not just parent advisory groups, many others, but starting right there and letting them be a part of the team and a part of the process and giving them a broader view of what we're actually doing in the district and allowing their voices to be heard and recommendations and suggestions. It's going to make all the difference. I communicate. You cannot over communicate. You cannot. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Oh, by the way, how are you doing? You guys, when you come on, let us know how you're doing too. We want to know how you're doing and how your families are doing.
We are doing great.
Okay.
We're making it. We are very busy.
Yeah.
No downtime.
I can imagine. Well, only imagine. But anyway, thank you so much. You have a great day. We've got a couple more reports, and we are on time. It's 9:45, and we are ready for the Westbrook Village. Tracy Mallory to come on.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everyone? Hopefully everyone's doing well.
We are here outside. I want to get outside.
It's a beautiful morning. So let's see here. So I'll do similar and just kind of go through the questions. So I'll try not to sound redundant. Tammy and Nate and I, we talk often, and we agree on a lot of things. So I won't spend a lot of time on some of the things that are redundant. But I will take advantage of this opportunity that I have with the board. We don't have you all like right in front of us all the time. And I'm probably one of the most upfront and honest principals in the group. And not that everybody else is not honest, but I probably get on a roll and start saying stuff that I shouldn't say. But I do plan on keeping my job for next year. So it's going to be a good report. All right.
We're ready when you're ready. Okay.
So what do I think our building did well during the transition? As Nate said, I think communication has always been well, I think, at Westbrook Village. And so we just kind of continued that. I do think that participating in a lot of the professional development opportunities that were immediately available, our teachers did very well. We have numerous hours of professional development accumulated just from that March time that we were out to the end of the school year. And some of the teachers are still participating in professional development opportunities, even though they're not on contract. And then another thing that I feel like we did well, during the school year, we've been a big proponent of restorative practices and helping teach students and teaching them skills to build their resilience. And so I feel like we really pushed that the last few years. So hopefully a lot of our students were able to use that while they were at home, all of those skills, because, our goal is to make them lifelong learners and to teach them skills that they're going to need beyond Westbrook Village, not skills that they're just going to need to make it through 4th and 5th grade. And so I just feel like our staff did a great job with that. What have we been doing since the COVID break to assist teachers online? Just supporting them, making sure that they do have those professional development opportunities. And also, I've just been really trying to stay in contact with my staff and making sure that they find that balance. Very similar to what Ms. Bozeman said about, they're at home and they've got families too. And at the stay-at-home order, everybody was at home. So they got kids at home that they got to balance, plus the kids in the classroom that they're trying to balance. And just making sure that, everybody's social, emotional state is at a balance where you can support everyone around you. And so just making sure that I stay in contact with them in regards to those areas. What do you see the biggest challenges that involved with online teaching? I think what Nate said, definitely about access, community access. I think this COVID has brought to light all of the disadvantages of equity that are across the community. And not just with technology and food, but with resources and with everybody's mental state. I just think that has been a very big challenge, that community access. Another challenge that I hope will be kind of field about with the parent focus groups is just the understanding and importance of us all being a village, that understanding that, I think oftentimes, and people don't want to say it, but a lot of our parents feel like, what, school and learning is your job and I'll take care of them when they're at home. And that's not the case. It's the job for all of us at all times to make sure students are learning. And I think that was a difficult piece for a lot of our parents to absorb, that right now, yes, the teacher is here electronically.
Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Oh, I'm sorry. My watch was having trouble hearing me. So, but I think it was a difficult pill for a lot of parents to swallow, that we need your support right now more than we probably have needed your support in making sure that they get a good night's sleep, making sure that they are up and on time and ready for their class, and making sure that even that the laptop that you have is charged, and making sure you have a schedule for everybody in the house to use maybe the one computer. That's a parent's job. That's not a kid's job. A kid can't manage all of that. And so I just think it was an eye opener, and I think I just hope, I know that was a challenge, just helping everybody understand the importance that it takes a village. And I say that all the time, but I think in this case with this COVID, it takes a village. Let's see, just going down the questions. In cases where most teachers could not fill the whole day, I do think that the new model that we have for online learning will fix a lot of that. The new model has a lot of supports, a lot of interactive opportunities that we maybe didn't realize that we had with Google Classroom as our teachers were in a learning curve in using it more often. But I do think this new model or new platform for online learning that they're piloting with the summer school program that hopefully we'll be using when school begins will fill a lot of those voids. It'll provide some opportunities, as Nate said, for that project-based learning as well, for students to work in groups, even if it's online, and for, teachers to put students in groups. What were the aha moments? I think it just goes back to the importance of the village. That is just the biggest aha moment. It's going to take all of us to make it happen for our students. And how can the board assist? Let's see, I wrote down some things. In regards to, I guess, talking with the community, I do feel like, the door is always open for us to be honest. But I'll be honest, I don't always feel like everybody's on the same page. And I just really believe in one band, one sound. So whatever decision that we make, I just feel like everybody needs to be on board with that decision. And just know that hopefully, I would hope that you feel like you have people on the team that you trust that are making the best decisions for kids and the best decision for the district. And so whatever that decision is, however we end up back in school, I would just hope that we all would be on the same page. And when I say on the same page, I mean, not just on the same page in the boardroom and inside of central office, but on the same page when we walk outside the door and the questions start coming in. Because I do feel like no matter what decision we make, we're not going to make everybody happy. 100% of the staff, the students, the families are not going to be happy. It's going to inconvenience someone regardless of how we come back. And I'll be honest, I have some concerns with coming back 100%. I have some concerns about not being able to keep every kid safe. If we all come back 5 days a week, 6.5 hours a day. But of course, if that's what the result is, or if that's what the ending decision is, I will support it the best way possible. But just know going in that whatever decision that we make, it's not going to be perfect for everybody. And so we have to make sure that we can plan to fill in those gaps where it's not perfect for some families or it's not convenient. But I just want to make sure that we're all on one band, one sound. And sometimes I don't feel like that. So. Let's see. I think that's all I have. I think I wrote down something. I got some arrows kind of going here where it says, what is the biggest success involved? What do you see the biggest success involved in online learning? Oh, okay. So I did think there was a success in that. I think it just pushed us to the 21st century. I'll be honest. I mean, we all should be honest. Online learning is not new to this world. So it should not have been like, I think, a big shock to everybody. I just feel, online learning has been around for a while. There's a whole lot of people walking around with doctorate degrees that got them online. And it's a whole lot of preachers walking around that got their degrees online. So online learning is not new. So I'm glad that, I'm not glad that COVID happened, but sometimes things need to happen to push. Sometimes people have to be uncomfortable to push into what needs to happen. And so I'll stop because I got my little shirt on, Black Lives Matter and making people uncomfortable. And so we got to push, and I can go on and on, but I'm going to end right there. So
no, just keep on going. Just keep on going, Miss Valerie. All right.
I feel like that preacher.
But I would like to make sure that we also have made a statement as the district in regards to what's happening in the world. I have not necessarily seen that. It might be on the Trotwood page that I have not seen, but I would like to know what is our district stance on what's happening in this world, because our kids are coming back and we don't have our hands on them right now. So they're just living in all of it. And so I'm done.
You have the floor. Actually, you're early. You have like 5 more minutes.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
No, thank you. Thank you for your transparency. Thank you for your honesty. All right. We appreciate that. That is what we need to hear. I gotta say this. This board is not the big bad wolf. We are not. Tracy, you know that. All right? We are, our hands, our feet are on the ground, our hands are in the trenches. We are marching right beside you in everything that you guys do. I think that's a misnomer in most districts, that the board is way here and the superintendent, everybody's way here. We're not. We are one band, one sound. We are one team, one fight. We truly are. So again, we appreciate your honesty. And I love that you said that you're concerned. You're concerned of coming back 5 days a week and 6 hours a day. I work in healthcare. I worked in a COVID unit. I get it. Okay. Did you hear what I said? I get it. I know our superintendent gets it. Number one, she even put safety in red because that is our priority. Keep our kids safe, keep our families safe, keep our staff safe. I mean, because let's just face it, if kids are sick, they can't learn anyway. You can't teach. If you're sick, you don't come to work. Yes. You can't come to work. We don't want you to come to work. Okay. But again, what you said is you brought the fire, because that's how this board feels. You want to know what our stance is. We're getting ready to put out a piece on that community piece. That stance will be evident to the entire community what that is. And we'll actually look at putting that same verbiage on the website. So again, and our stance, trust and believe, is right in line with you, with what you're thinking. Okay. I mean, I tried to buy a Black Lives Matter t-shirt and they didn't have my size. But at the end of the day, we appreciate you. Any other comments from board members?
Yes. I kind of second what Ms. Moore just said. And I really think that we are kind of on the same page with everything that we try to do. I think that I feel like we're doing a pretty good job of listening and trying to accommodate and incorporate all of the concerns of all of the interested parties in the district. And you do have our complete support. And the idea of putting out a statement, I think that's going to be done today. I think it's very appropriate. Maybe a little behind on it, I don't know, but everything is so fluid that I think that when we put something out, it'll be definitive and it'll be something to stand up regardless of whatever else transpires. And I think we all share the same concerns about bringing kids back and how we're going to bring them back and the protocols. And hopefully we're going to get a lot of that straightened out today too. But that's about all of it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Okay. No other comments. Next up, middle school, Mr. Gibson. And it's 10 a.m. We're right on time. I'm so excited because we are like right on time.
Perfect. First of all, let me start by saying I absolutely hate going after Miss Mallory. She always does this. And I always have to follow. So thank you for that, Miss Mallory. First of all, good morning. It is a great morning, so I'm glad to be here to talk about what we did at the middle school. So I'll just jump right into it and let you guys have any conversation or dialogue or questions for me at the end. So one thing of what we did well as a building post-COVID was I thought we set up a few systems. I thought our Google Classroom with Google Numbers, I thought we did that well. Every teacher set up that Google number, that Google Classroom. I thought we had a system in place so we could see who's not engaged in their activities, their assignments. I thought we did that really well. So I was able to have a comprehensive list of students that are not engaging in the process. So I thought we did that really well. We were able to get some kids who needed resources. We put together a criteria, and we were able to put together something so we can get a list of students that needed those Chromebooks. And we gave out, I believe, at the middle school about 60 Chromebooks to students that needed those Chromebooks that had access to Wi-Fi, which I'll talk about when we get to 3 about challenges. But the kids who had Wi-Fi and they just needed a Chromebook to engage in the task, we were able to quickly create some verbiage and then get those parents to sign it and give those kids the Chromebooks. So that was helpful for some students. And I thought we did that well. So what have we been doing since then? One of the first things we started to do, I got with my BLT team, and we just started forward. We're thinking about what do we need when our kids come back? Where are we at? What do we need to get better at? So we immediately started looking at PD that aligned to what we were already had in place, as far as we had PD for vocab.com, so our teachers can get better at using that resource. We had PD for Newsella. And then other programs that we tried to ensure that our staff was able to get those PDs to just get better, regardless. We didn't know when we were coming back. But we know at some point we're going to come back. So we tried to be intentional about the PD and what our teachers needed in order to make sure we engage students in this online learning. But even when they get back, how can we be better than we were before we even left? So that's where we're at there. Number 3, what do we see as the biggest challenges involved in this learning? This was tough because, I look at, for me, the males in the district literacy rates, and we know that our young men, as far as we talk about literacy, we have some work to do. So when I talk about those challenges, I always spot check a group of kids just to see how they're doing in this process. And that became evident to me that this were a group of kids that really, unfortunately, weren't engaged as much in this process. So there were a group of kids that I knew we just weren't connecting with well, and they were not reading on a regular basis, and they were not engaged in this process, thus creating this gap to become bigger. So that's a frustrating part. And that was a challenge. How do we engage all of these kids in this type of process? And when you talk about the middle school, those kids really have to be engaged in the process. We know when we're talking about reading, we have to have material that engages them to even, unfortunately, get them to really buy into reading. So we had a situation, and there were a group of kids that I just don't think we did well with connecting with. Not only that, I know we talked about, superintendent talked about equity, but that reeled itself as well when we talked about the kids who, once again, had multiple siblings in a house, did not have Wi-Fi. So that just became evident to us. And we really, truly didn't create, we didn't answer that. We helped some kids as best we could. We put some things online. But, and I'm just going to say this now, we cannot continue. And I've said this in many meetings, that we can't do online learning as we did fourth quarter. Even if we have to go to a situation where we have to do some blended learning and some online learning, it cannot look like it looked the fourth quarter. We have to be very strategic, and we have to have a framework of how we do online learning that is centered around best practices that truly engage students in this process. So that became evident to me when we talked about some of the biggest concerns. Let me pull back up my questions. All right. We said Wi-Fi. All right. So number 4, what do you see as the biggest success in learning? I think it got mentioned earlier is that, for some kids, they can go back and look at it and kind of work at their own pace. So that's definitely a benefit for some of those students. And then it kept kids safe. As far as the COVID, we didn't want a situation where somebody got sick on our watch. So this did allow for that. The interesting thing that happened in my building that I'm happy happened. We have a lot of veteran teachers in the middle school. And then because we had a huge turnover last year, we had a lot of new teachers come in. So throughout the year, our veteran teachers have kind of been molding the younger teachers a lot of time when we talk about curriculum and instruction and how we do things in Trotwood. Well, it flipped a little bit after COVID, and I saw my younger teachers now have a chance to be leaders and teachers to the veteran teachers in the building. And I thought that was a powerful when I saw veteran teachers going to the younger teachers, like, show me how to do this. And they were running groups and teaching these teachers. So I thought, as far as the relationship piece and what that can do for the building long term, I thought I saw that as a benefit. So it became a different dynamic. And I think that helps us moving forward, because regardless, we have to jump into the 21st century. And we say that, but I truly mean that blended learning and what that looks like and using these online resources. And I think we are now, because of this, we have to be better. So I think our building wants to be better, and I think we will be better. Number 5, in cases where most teachers can no longer fill the whole school day virtual instruction, what do you think should be done to fill this void? So I won't speak to a specific district or districts, but I know of a district, my child is in this school, and this connection that the student has or is forced to have with the community, and then this project that they have to do, and then the research that goes behind that, and then the presenting of that information. This forces a kid to engage in community, do project-based learning, as Warner talked about. We have to find a way to connect to the community, our kids, to do something meaningful and bring that knowledge back. That is the only way that they will, not the only way, but that is a way that we can engage kids that don't find school to be that exciting, especially when we talk about the middle school kids. But what does excite you? What in the community interests you? And then how can I get you to now research that and do some learning there? Because it's power in them just researching and doing some of that work and reading things that are interest to them and then bringing that knowledge back. So we have to be thinking, how do we have that connection? How do we bridge that community and school, and in a meaningful way that learning continues? So I've seen a district do that. And, I watch as my daughter does the research and has to do her community service hours. And I'm just thinking in my head, that's powerful. And then on the other side, I have a niece who went through that program, and the testament to me is when you have a full ride to Ohio State, and in your junior year, you look back and you say, I was prepared for college because of that. That research, that presenting my information and being forced to research, I was prepared, and I'm doing well at Ohio State. So to me, when I can hear that out of the mouths of, my 3 of my nieces that are, in college right now, that speaks volumes to the power of what project-based learning can do for students. So to me, I think there's an opportunity there that we probably should consider. 6, what were the aha takeaway moments that you would like to share? The aha moments for me was how important relationships really are, which I kind of know. But there's some students that reached out to me, or when I saw them at Walmart or Kroger's, and you realize how bad they just really want to be in the building. Oh, sorry, my watch. They really want to be in the building. They really miss their teachers, that connection. They miss that. We miss that. That's why I got into this, for that relationship piece. It drove me a little crazy. So I made sure I picked up my physical activity while I'm not in the building around the students. But that piece is just huge, especially, as young men are trying to figure out themselves at the middle school level and what it is to be a middle school kid in this society, and all of those things are playing in their head, how important it is for them to have guidance in this process. So that became evident, and just how important relationships are. 7, how can you guys assist? I would just say support. And when you make decisions as far as policy, make sure that we have an opportunity to get information, as you guys said you're doing, from everybody, and then make the best decision. There's policies that I just want us to consider. That is it beneficial to the district not only to one group, but I mean, literally the whole district. So when we have an opportunity to do policy with you guys, it's going to have a tough job as far as tweaking some policy as we move forward. But just making sure we're coming from understanding, getting the voices of principals, TMEA, but everybody, and making that, making some of those decisions. We're going to have some tough decisions coming up, and Mallory hit it on the head. There are going to be a lot of people upset with whatever decision we come up with, because we're not going to please everybody. But long as we make a sound decision based upon the information that we have, based upon the voices, I'm glad to hear we're surveying the community. We're getting all these voices. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to make some tough decisions, and some policy might have to be tweaked. So just, as you guys work through that policy, and then to just support whatever support us in what we're doing here. That's how I think you guys can really assist us. And that's pretty much all I have. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. That was good. Project-based learning. Ms. Friedman talks about the project-based learning quite a bit. And so, again, it's not something new for us to hear. And it's one of the things that we have really been pushing to make sure that our kids have those type of opportunities in the community. So, again, I'm hoping that maybe, we'll get with the curriculum or superintendent and share what your child is doing. And sometimes, and I have to say this, we don't always have to reinvent the wheel. We can cater it to Trotwood, but we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And those shared ideas, they go a long way. A lot of the ideas and recommendations and suggestions that even the board brings forth is because we network. We network with other boards. We network with leadership, elected officials across the state, local, and around our local municipality. And they're doing some incredible, amazing things, and they're working. So it allows us to bring them back and share it with the superintendent and see where or how or if it can even work here in Trotwood. So thank you for that. And middle school, you're right, it's different. That's a different world. The kids are different. They're dealing with a lot of emotional adolescence, pre-adolescence issues, and it's hard to get your arms around them for anybody who's ever had a middle schooler or who's worked with middle schoolers. So again, thank you. Very good presentation, good information, and we appreciate the work that you're doing.
I have a question on you mentioned that you looked at the male literacy rates within your building. So you've identified a group of our young males that are at risk, or what did that look like? And what is the follow-on to looking at those numbers? What is the follow-up action to dealing with it?
Thank you for that. So yeah, I have identified 30 male students that are coming into the middle school, that are coming in here into the middle school based upon the last data that I have as far as MAP data, and and they're not on IEPs. So we're talking 30 kids that are scoring significantly low in math. And I'm just going to speak to the math right now because that's what I'm creating this plan around. But it lends itself to literacy as far as most group of kids, they have the literacy issue and the math. But I particularly wanted to follow this group for 3 years, this cohort, and see what happened with this plan as far as math. But we have these 30 kids that are way below, and they're not on IEPs. So when I started to look at these students' attendance, I started to look at, their grades, the behavior. We wanted to try to put some systems in place to be intentional to see if it has success over the years. So first of all, they're going into what we have is our math lab class. That's going to be a supplemental to their core math that they already get. So now we're going to be intentional about filling in those gaps that those kids specifically have that they've demonstrated that they don't have these skills. And some of the overarching skills that came about were just their ability to understand fractions, multiply, and there were some skills that they needed that we saw that we just needed to address. So the lab, they're not in the same class, but the path that they do in that math lab will cater to the needs that those students have. So we're going to specifically try to address gaps that they have in skills. Also, those kids will be in our mentoring program, and we're going to follow those kids through the check-in, check-out process that we have. We also had this year, we tried to do our HIMSS mentoring program that we wrap our arms around some identified kids that struggle with behavior. So we're going to try to monitor these kids and see if that helps as well. And then we're also going to tie in to make sure they're getting to school, and by identifying them early and putting these things even before they hit the middle school, and then track those students along the way. We're going to try to see if that has success. That is almost identical to what we found when we look at the literacy as well. But specifically, I'm tailoring this for math right now, just to, as I look at the data, does it work? I wanted to get really specific and nail down the data to a very set amount of students to see if it has success. So I hope I answered your question, but that's
So the mentoring club, there's a mentor for each student, or is it a group of gentlemen that are mentoring a group of students?
It'll be a combination of both. So once we have those kids, the next process will be our PBIS team and restorative, seeing who we can set these 25 kids up with in the building. So tier 2 kids who are not that much behavior situations, like not getting suspended over fights. Those kids might only get connected with, and this is all if we're in the building, they might be connected with a restorative person in the building, a hallway monitor in the building. It depends on, their personality. Those 3 kids who we just see as, okay, this kid is always suspended, fighting, we have to get really intensive. Those are that I'm hoping to narrow that list down to about 8. Those kids will go to what we had this year, which we tried was our HIMSS mentoring program, which we did every other Saturday that we tried to have, and it was ran by myself and my parent engager. And that just was us with these young men doing different activities and just really trying to get to know them and build that relationship piece. So our theory is that if they have that relationship piece, that connection to somebody and purpose, that should help with the discipline in the building. And then we'll see what happens. When we looked at the kids that did our HIMSS mentoring program this year, and we looked at those kids, we took kids who were constantly being suspended or expulsion. And I would like to say informally, I thought we were having success, but we didn't get to finish out the year to clearly say it, nor did I track the data specifically enough to be able to share it. But informally, I thought it was having success on a few of those students. So the goal is to continue that on a bigger scale, a more structured scale, and being very specific to who we put in that program. So I'll let you know.
Okay. And I heard of this school. There was a gentleman's club that a principal had implemented, and this was years ago. So he took the worst of his male students, but what they did was a little different. He exposed them to things that they normally wouldn't be exposed to a museum, to a five-star, restaurant to eat. So I think it's exposure to different things as well as the environment that they're in. If we can look at that, because as we talk Black Lives Matter, our Black men and our young men lives really matter. So being a district of predominantly a Black district, we do have to be intentional at looking at those things and making sure that we have male mentors out there within this community and other areas, that I don't know that it has to be just you, and I really appreciate that you look at that and that's what you've put in place. But maybe we can expand it to some of our alumni within Trotwood that are successful that will reach out and mentor them into the areas that they're in.
And
just something to think about.
No, thank you for that. That is the goal. I had it to be on the ground in this one because we were doing some different things, like you said. We were cooking, we were baking pies,
Right.
we were having a good time. But the goal is that it could be more community. But I just had to really see how it was going to play out, how it was going to work. And then it's being such a specific type of student. I didn't know.
Right. And I appreciate that. You start somewhere, and your start was a really good start. So from there, all we have to do is look to see how do we expand that, not only to middle school, but to high school within our district. So thank you for that.
I would like to jump in for a second. And I have to say, I've been so impressed by my principals, my building directors. I just don't even know what to say. And I've been trying to get in the chat. Me and Marlon are sort of looking at that because I'm struggling. I know how, but mine isn't letting me go down and type. So I want to say it openly. You guys have been wonderful, and I'm anticipating what Mike is going to say. But to the point we were just talking about getting some male mentors, I have received a communication from some families in our district, some males who are, like you said, the people we're talking about who are doing very well, very successful, and they would like to bring a program just like what we're talking about to us. So, Mr. Gibson, I will invite you in on that conversation, so because I think they do, as you said, have a group, a type of student in mind. And so this may just be one of many mentorships that we set up for our students, but I think it would be really cool. It sounds right along the lines of what you're talking about. And Ms. Jeter Freeman, I agree with you. Our students need to be exposed to things that just typically, we all aren't. I mean, golf, when do we pick that up? When do we learn that there are scholarships out there for tennis and for things? I know we have a good tennis team here because I remember when I was here, but I'm just saying in general that there are a lot of things that we may even be able to get our kids to get scholarships for that they're not exposed to, soon enough. So everybody's doing a great job. Everybody, board members, you are too. I love your questions. I'm taking notes.
I also wanted to say to Mr. Gibson, there's another African-American treasurer at Jefferson. And in terms of the math piece, we might want to set up something where they can come over to my office or we can come to you guys to show them exactly what we use fractions to calculate percentages. So the math is an everyday kind of thing that people need. And so I'm just offering my help. I'm not a male, but in terms of just the mathematical perspective, I could help with that as well.
I'd like to say that it was a good presentation. It's very interesting. In light of the time and the era that we're currently living in, I think one of the key words that came out was intentional. And I think that we have always had the idea in the back of our mind of what we need to do more specifically for young Black males. But I think this time is right for us to really be able to explore and really expand the things we want to do. And I think, like I say, the key word is intentional. Giving them new and different experiences is very critical. That's what changed and helped me to get to where I have been. And I'm going to kind of cut it off because we're running over time. But I would like to continue this topic and this discussion. Maybe at another time we can set some things up, because I think junior high is a real critical transition point for a lot of our young men. It was for me, and I'm sure I wasn't dramatically different than anybody else. So I agree with all those points.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for their comments. Thank you, Mr. Gibson. We appreciate the information. Next up, we have Mr. McCray at the high school.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I hope everybody's doing well. So I'm doing great.
Okay, have you seen the new baby?
Oh, you want to see the new baby? He is
Yes.
here. Oh,
Okay, we got to see the new baby. Okay, first things first, okay, guys? Oh my God. Is everybody okay? Everybody doing okay? Are we good? Okay, wonderful. We have a short break after Mr. McCrae. So we'll just keep moving along.
I haven't done this in a while, but I got my little man right here.
Oh, okay. Now you got to hold him up a little bit. Oh,
Put the screen down.
oh my gosh.
Gotta go to sleep, so it's kind of difficult.
He is adorable.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Drew, J-R-U-E. I'm gonna take him back, and I ain't good at this. I've got to get back to doing it.
See, we thought you were going to give your presentation with the baby.
Oh no, I don't have them skills. I don't have those skills. I just do a little eating. That's it. I don't change the diet thing. But
thank you for sharing with us. Thank you.
Before I start my little presentation, the one thing I would like to say to start this off, going through this COVID-19, I want to say Central Office and Mr. Howard, really got us started off on the right foot. They communicated with us, principals, about the possibility of going to shut down, and they provided us with a lot of information to make some good decisions before we got to this point. So I want to, Mr. Howard, Miss Minor, her staff, and Central Office, I want to say thank you for putting us in a situation where I believe, were successful going through this change. And I want that to be known. They communicated with us every week. Mr. Howard always put out the morning messages. So we was always informed about changes, and we always communicated and had opportunity to communicate with each other about going through this process. And saying that, we all got different needs from K through 12. High school is a little different than Mr. Warner or Mr. Gibson, but we all in the same process. And I'm just going to go through this. What did we do well that we thought we did well at the high school? One of the things we did, we came together very quickly to learn Google Classroom for some of our staff members, providing them PD that they needed to get that started. Also creating the package for students. We had some students that did not have opportunity to have a computer at home. We had to create packages as quick as possible. You got to realize at the high school, there's a lot more courses and classes to do this, from the elective courses to the core courses. So we had to get together really quickly to put these packages together for students that did not have opportunity to have a laptop. Make sure that all staff, 100% of them, set up their Google Classroom. They did a good job being transparent, communicating, talking to each other, because some of them was unsure in this process for themselves at their home, but also how to do this. One thing that we learned in this process was some of our school students got overwhelmed with so much work. So we had to create a schedule for them on certain days to work on certain courses, and we had to create a schedule for them and the parents. So that was something that came out of that really well. We did the same thing at the high school. At the middle school, we got an opportunity with Mr. Howard's support. We got 100 Chromebooks, and we made sure that the seniors had them first, because they had 9 weeks, and some of them needed to do a lot of work for graduation. And then the ones we had left over, we provided the students and parents the opportunity to come pick them up and use them. Other things that we thought we did well, that was new, that I think we're going to keep some of it, was some of the stuff with the seniors and the graduations and some of them things. The CAT and gown delivery that we did, drive up, I really enjoyed that. I think that's a process that I would love to continue to do. Just having that opportunity for the kids to come up and the staff being out there cheering for them, music playing, just to get their caps and gowns. That was exciting. Graduation was it was tough, but we got through the process. There's some things that we'll do different with that, but it was still, we believe it was a success. But there's some things we would do different with that. Keeping track of the seniors was something that we did a good job of because, that this last 9 weeks, we didn't want any of them to fall off, to put yourself in a situation that they did not have opportunity to graduate. Something else that we thought we did a good job of, new ways to communicate with our students. We use Google Classroom, the counselors, the teachers, to put messages out to students. And also, utilizing our district email. All our students have an email, and it's the first time we used it in a massive way to communicate with students 9 through 12. Even make us think about next year using that process to make sure we distribute schedules and look at how we're going to communicate with our students differently. So we had to step out of that comfort zone of doing everything by paper or announcements. We found other ways to communicate with our students through Google Classroom and also with their personal email from school. What we've been doing since the question 2, so what we've been doing since the outbreak, we've been having regular staff meetings to communicate with them during this process, the last 9 weeks, and also trying to get prepared with this coming school year. We have regular TBT meetings with each other for nobody will work in isolation because everybody needs support and collaboration going through this process because it was new. And it's like some other principals said, we got some people that did the online piece, a virtual piece better than others. So it's better off communicating with each other and having some conversation. The PD that was offered by Solution Tree, Ms. Minor and them set up, staff utilized that. And we have regular BLT meetings, building leadership team meetings, to provide support for staff. If they had any questions, they will go through their BLT meetings, leaders, and then we'll come back and provide them with information that they needed. The BLT, I'm really proud of my BLT this year. There's more collaboration, it's more initiatives from them to take leadership roles within the building. And I believe they have done a great job of doing that. I get emotional, but I'm glad I see the leadership coming out of them. And you want to grow as a building. The high school is the biggest building. So it's very difficult to see everything and be every place. So I need other leaders in the building to take place in the department. And they did a good job of taking leadership. And I'm really proud of them. Question 3. Oh, the challenges of online. Some of the same thing that some of the other principals I already mentioned, from the access to computers and internet. Making sure we monitor student participation. High school a little bit different. Some of our students want to tell parents they can't log into Google Classroom. They don't know how to log into Google Classroom. More accountability for them in this process was, trying to keep them going in the right direction for some of them. Meeting the needs of our IEP students was difficult. Their accommodations and was tough to meet. Students getting immediate feedback from their teacher, that was tough. They did have times where they could email their teacher and then get back. But when you have roughly our teachers average about 150 students, getting back to everyone in a timely manner sometimes can be very difficult if they email them about some things that they have some problems with. But most of them did a pretty good job. One thing that we recognize, a lot of our students want to do everything on their phone. And a lot of times they cannot do everything on their phone. And because the capability for the phone to talk to the Google Classroom, we learned a lot about that. So we have to make sure that we have some things in place to let them and educate them that they cannot do everything with their cell phone. Biggest success involved in online, staff got out their comfort zone. They made adjustments when they needed to make adjustments. Teachers using Zoom and Google Meet to assist their students. And then, like I think Tracy said earlier, opportunity to develop the 21st century skills, our students and our staff. I think that was really success in that. Number 5, some of the things, I got a lot more things on my list, but a lot of the things already been mentioned from other principals. So some things that we think we need to do a better job to make sure when the teachers don't have enough to do, they just need more PD. They just need more experiences with the online and virtual learning. I think Mrs. Minor and some people are doing that with this blended learning activities we've been doing. I think that will help us in this process if we have to stick with a online platform for next year. I think that will help our teachers in this process. Also, one thing that I didn't mention, but other people mentioned, the social emotional piece of this for our students were high school were very difficult. We had to send some social workers out. We had to send a couple of mental health therapists out because some of our kids were talking about doing some things to themselves because they were not in school. So that mental piece is really real for our students. So that social and mental piece that they miss with us, that they got on a regular basis from our mental health therapists, from our social worker, our Miss Stewart, our suicide prevention lady. Them things were very difficult to make sure that we provide them students them opportunities to have that time to speak to them people. But we kind of worked through it. We got some of them things done, but that's a huge concern if we continue on this platform. I'm more of a blended guy. I think the students need to come to school. I love to go back to do it the way we always do it and everybody show up. But I got some reservations too about safety because you don't know what everybody else is going through and there's somebody home and if they're gonna communicate, they got some illness. That's my biggest concern. Takeaway, haha moments. One of the biggest haha moments when students come in, I think they're going to appreciate us more now. A lot of them really miss school. I think they understand the importance of us and our communication, our relationships. Even when students came to get laptops or packets or work permits or whatever they needed to come in, it was like, man, I got to get back to school. I'm tired of being with my brothers and sisters. I'm tired of being at home. I think they missed the interaction of, just being in school. I think they're really going to appreciate us more. I think staff really miss being at work too. I mean, they was at home with their kids. I always talk about Miss Miracle, when we did virtual meetings with her, it was kids all over the place, coming through the screen. And then she was trying to work at the same time. So I think staff are going to appreciate being at work and understand we do need that break sometimes for our own family. We became flexible too. We became flexible. We made adjustments as needed. Even when we went through the graduation piece, our first meeting, I told everybody, we're not going to make everybody happy in this process, but we need to make sure that we do what's best for students as possible. And when we do that, it will work itself out. And we made adjustments as we went. We had different options, but we had to make adjustments as we went through this process. And people made good adjustments at that time. Like I said about the student emailing, that was, you get emails from students on a regular basis talking about, I need help. How can you do this? How you can do that? students did a good job of communicating with us through the email process when they needed help. But we need to make sure that the ones that did not have that type of access, how was they going to communicate with us? Because with no one there to answer the phone. So that's one of our concerns. How do we kids that don't have access be able to communicate with us if they don't have a cell phone or they do not have internet or a computer? The ones that did have them devices did a good job of communicating with us when they needed. One of the concerns we have going into next year and we need support on, we really want to at the high school. I know maybe Daniel wants this too, and maybe other principal. We would love to have a one-on-one technology piece that every student has a laptop or a Chromebook. We think that's necessary in this process. If we stay with blended, or even we go back traditional, we think our students just need that process to have that opportunity. We know we're gonna have to look into doing something with the internet, but we think we should be a one-on-one school district. I know that's easy said and done. I understand finance is different for us than others. But overall, I thought we handled the pandemic pretty well. There's always things that you can do different once you go back and you analyze and do some reflection. We already had that meeting and some things that we would do differently at the high school, like some things predicated on what we can do with finances too. So, one-on-one stuff. So we got to get some guidance from maybe central office and some other places before some of our decisions can be made. What do I need from the board? Just support, honesty. I'm a very honest person. I might beat me and Tracy run neck and neck about honesty. I just think people be truthful and honest, and if we have a disagreement, we just had a disagreement and we work through the disagreement. That we work together. I believe in collaboration. I believe in team. Sometimes we don't have to be all on the same page, but we all got to go out there fighting the same battles at the same time. I am concerned about next year. I expressed that to Dr. Cosby. I done worked on 3 master schedules. That's tough to do at the high school level. Making sure bodies are where they need to be at different times. But me and my administrative team have done a good job, and my counselor had done a good job with the scheduling piece. But I'm also excited. I really want to see my students. I really missed them. Went out to football practice the other day. That's totally different than usual. 10 kids together. They gotta have their own water bottle. They got to spray down all the equipment once one group get done. It's a total different setup. But I had to go out there and see some of my students, and it was good to see them and talk to them. Went to volleyball practice, the same process is, 2 kids can't hit the same ball. I don't know how you do volleyball practice with that, but basketball, been doing little open stuff, and you got to have your own basketball and you got to wipe it down. So it's different. It's different. It's a lot of logistical things that we have to work through. And I'll be glad when we make the decision and we can start working through all the little pieces. I guess that's it for me because I'm glad. I do have one recommendation. We don't always have to start with the ELC and then work to the high school. Sometimes we can go to high school and work backwards. It seems like I'm always last every meeting because we always work up. I wouldn't mind going first sometimes, or you can put me in the middle. It doesn't matter, but it seems like I'm always last. And a lot of things I say, somebody else don't already say it. I don't want to repeat myself and say the same thing over and over again. But for my first year as principal, I thought it went well. I already done some reflection. I gave myself a C+ grade. There's some things I would like to do better, but I was more concentrated on establishing a culture there and looking at the culture because the last year before was, I would say, very difficult. We lost some of our cultural thing. I want the kids to know that they were important. I want the staff to know that they were important. And that go for everyone in the staff, from clerical to custodians to food service. But you got to realize we had a 5-year plan at the high school. We're going into year 2, and be patient. We're going to get there. Some people been there further along in their process than me, but we're going to get where we need to. And this year will be a focus on academic success at the high school. That's where we're going to take our next step and still build on our culture at this high school. I'll take any questions, anything that you'd like to share with me. Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McCray. Well noted. You'll be first at the next retreat on the agenda. No, and thank you for your presentation. Very good. I know everybody said a lot of the things you said that were in your notes. However, it sounds as if things are as best as they could be. And I'm glad you shared that, how you guys were emailing back and forth with the students, because I've been getting emails from students and I'm like, I've never gotten emails from students. And that's why, because they can find all of us now. Okay. And they know that we're all there. I'm thinking, really? So this is good. It's about break time. If everybody is okay with that, if there's no other comment, I would love to take a quick bio break. And then we can come back and pick up where we left off. 10 to 15 minutes. What's good for you? We have 15 minutes on the schedule. And that way we can grab something to eat, drink, come on back. So it is 10:48. It's 10:50. You guys want to come back at about 5 after 11? Is that okay?
That sounds good.
All right. Thank you. All right. We'll see you guys about 5 after 11. All right. Thanks.
Hi, Lisa. You looking good today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
loved your whole presentation. It was awesome.
Thank you. Look, I'm glad, like Mike said, I'm glad I get to go before you because I know you always do an awesome job. So welcome.
Only
on.
the support of the team. I just love, I can listen to the principals all day.
Weren't they great?
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize for huffing and puffing. I got my mom up, got her started on her day.
Yeah, right. We're yep. You're ready.
That's what we got to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thank everybody for getting back on time. Appreciate that. And we'll go ahead and get moving. Next up, we have department reports and Ms. Minor, curriculum and school improvement.
Okay, thank you, Board President Moore. Good morning, everyone. And I'm just on cloud nine. I could just sit and listen to the principals and Dr. Cosby all morning, but I'll get started quickly. I just got a few slides that I want to share. So I'm going to present my screen and bring up just a quick presentation. Can everyone see that? So is it showing on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So
okay, you're good.
First, we opened the year with professional learning communities. And as I was listening to the principals and reflecting on what's happened with some of the challenges, there was a quote that I came across from Michael Fullen that I'd like to share that kind of paints a picture of how we were set up for success in many ways. It says, Michael Fullen says, those skilled in professional learning communities are best positioned to prepare not only their students, but also themselves for the challenges and opportunities of an uncertain future. He wrote that in 2010. So who knew when we opened the year with professional learning communities, the value it would bring? And we've heard several examples of how this collaborative spirit that we opened with, whether it's teachers running you see a picture of one of our parent engagement nights at the middle school, to students working together collectively, to even teacher leaders leading our RESA meetings. It's been invaluable. This summer, we had over 61 teachers. Mrs. Mallory talked about professional learning, and many of you know there were well over 1,000 hours clocked in professional learning. We started in April, maybe, and by May, and we had over 61 teachers sign up to do book studies this summer. So it's been amazing. And we want to thank Mr. Howard for bringing it, and most importantly, the principals for supporting it. We even had teachers that, Tammy mentioned it, they videotaped themselves doing the blended learning and shared it with their colleagues just to make sure that everybody had the tools and the support they needed. So when we opened the year, we wanted to emphasize that every child mattered, that every child growing mattered. So working with the district leadership team and building leadership teams, we started disaggregating the data with every opportunity we could. This proved to be invaluable as we were able to monitor and make sure we're differentiating for all those learners, whether they're gifted, whether they were with special needs in some areas, or even our general ed students. You heard Mr. Gibson talk about him narrowing it all the way down to his Black males in the building. That's exactly was our focus when we kicked off the year. It resulted in, and you all may remember in the winter retreat, we were able to show evidence of more classrooms showing high growth and high achievement than ever before. Our literacy plan is the next topic I'll discuss. And Trotwood-Madison, we have a reason to work with literacy. It's the core, it's the foundation. So working collectively with the building principals and their leadership teams, we've actually done inventory, what we call a reading fidelity inventory for each building. And what this will do is help each building develop plans
of protocols and decision rules. So whatever the data shows, there's a personalized learning plan for each child on strengthening their literacy skills. I've provided an electronic copy to all board members. It's a draft we're still working on, but you'll be able to see the research behind it and all of the steps that we're taking. And we just want to thank again our building principals, support, the rest of the curriculum team for us making this happen. The other big initiative, and we've heard a little bit about it, is multiple tiers of support, or MTSS. And what that means is you're using the data you're disaggregating the data, both academic and behavioral, and developing plans of intervention and or enrichment for each child. So we started the MTSS movement this year. We're going to continue. And again, we're looking forward to strengthening the learning experience for each child. As Dr. Cosby said, we want excellence in education for every child. Speaking of which, our curriculum team was combined this year with special education. And so we literally were looking at reaching all learners as we collaborated and worked towards providing the best resources and support and materials to all staff and students. Our population obviously services our gen ed, our English language learners, special education, gifted and talented, wanting to make sure everyone receives what they need. When the COVID-19 happened, some things that people may not know is behind the scenes, our English language learner teacher, Mark Stansbury, he does blended learning all the time, having to service close to 20 students, grades K through 12. So because he was an expert, we quickly, using our PLC movement of collaboration, allowed him to train each and every intervention teacher working with special needs students, psychologists, speech therapists, on how to use blended learning for those targeted students, providing accommodations and support. So whether it was teletherapy, video lessons, face-to-face, recorded lessons, he jumped in on March 12th and trained everyone so we could roll it out, in addition to leaders at the building helping the gen ed population. Another, when we talk about equity, that's something we've been working on for the past 4 or 5 years. So when we were looking at our opportunities for our gifted and talented learners, we recognized that one advanced placement course at the high school was not enough. So working collaboratively with our teacher leaders at the high school, our administrators, and the rest of the curriculum team, I'm proud to say we now have advanced placement courses for all 4 content areas, in addition to advanced placement art. So the final slide that I have today, I titled it Seeing the Opportunity versus the Challenge. During the COVID-19 shutdown, the curriculum directors all over the county would meet every week to talk about what's happening, what are they doing. And we recognized that Trotwood was one of the few districts that accepted the opportunity to continue learning through the summer. We knew that we wanted it to be different, very different than what we offered in the spring for fourth quarter. And therefore, we kicked off our Summer Virtual Academy, Summer Rise. Implementing blended learning during this period has resulted in improved communication channels with our families. We've had the opportunity to transform instruction in a way that students continue to learn outside of traditional seat time. We increased our teachers' capacity to bring engaging lessons to students in non-traditional ways. Our Summer Rise program has been a success, and we even did map testing from home with a just small population of second and third graders, and 77% of the students who tested this summer scored higher this summer than they did in the winter benchmark. And we were concerned because you had that big gap where we weren't in school. However, the testing environment and working with the families, we were able to pull it off and even find out things that we want to do next time or not do. So now, without any more delay, I'd like to show a short video of our Summer Rise program so you can get a taste of what went on.
Hi, this is Miss Ford. I'm going to be teaching Summer Rise for third grade reading. I'm excited to see everybody. We're going to start Monday, June 1st at 9:30, and hopefully everybody's excited and ready to go. There's going to be lots of activities to do.
Really, Christmas applesauce, David, yes. All right, Mr. Freeman, whenever you're ready. All right, we're ready whenever you are, Eugene. Okay. Well, the little pig got up at 5. He went to Mr. Smith's farm and got some hay. Before the wolf came to his house, Little Pig, are you ready? Asked
Yes, Mom. That's mine. She's finishing. No, she's reading it. That's fine.
we have the end and the beginning. When says when says when together. Math. Good. Great. Next, I'm going to move on. Let me get mute that I'll work with.
Hello, friends. My name is Mr. Howard. Myself and Mr. Williams doing STEM activities and challenges for Summer Rise students. Hope to see you in class soon. Thank you.
My name is Phoenix Mason. I am in the 5th grade and I have my automation mechanics kit. I have this.
Make sure my boxes are about 8 to 10 inches apart. Okay. And I'm gonna add a video. You can see it's holding up, right?
Yes.
Let's take another video. I'm gonna take a third video. Who says they can't see me?
So now we use the tape.
You're not even tape right now. I want you to start stacking stuff on top of your paper, just to see how we're gonna see how strong this is. That man a little earlier tonight.
Okay. So Maya and Jason, you know how to put yourself on mute?
Okay, we're going to start our reading lesson. Remember, yesterday we talked about the author purpose. So why the author writes a story. We have another little video that we will be watching. I'm going to share my screen with you all. Make sure you have your listening ears on. So we're sitting still in our seat. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good. So everybody can hear me and everybody can see me. Everybody give me a big thumbs up like this. All right, wonderful. Here we go. Can everybody put my drum set? That's me. So we have a kick drum, we have a snare drum, we have a tom, we have another tom, and we have another tom. Oh, my hi-hat. This is a ride cymbal. Brass cymbal. This is a ride cymbal. So everybody, y'all take care of yourself. That's fine.
Okay, so that's any questions? That was a quick video from Summer Rise that showed a nice plethora of things that went on this summer.
Very well done, Ms. Miner. Very well done. That is awesome. The kids are having a good time and they're learning at the same time. So I'm impressed.
Thank you. So what we tried to do was have project-based standard reading and math, and then we had two different enrichment: music, and then we had movement, which was a little bit more like a gym. At our parent night, when we did our parent focus group, one of the parents, we asked them everything, like how testing go, how enrichment go, how the instruction go. And one parent said she loved the movement part. She had 3 children in the program, and she would just go join them. And she did her little exercise with the kids every time we had the little gym class. We had a teacher who was from the high school who had a child in the program who really raved about it and said that it was structured. It was exactly what she needed. It was easier for her to follow along, and they were just all very impressed. And we took notes from the focus group and shared it with and the superintendent joined us that night too. So we're going to have another meeting at the end of it. They gave us some great feedback and advice on how to improve. So we're just looking forward to continuing the learning.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Board, any comments?
I do have a comment and kind of more of a question, and I apologize because I came back a little bit late after the break. So if you discussed it, I apologize. But I had mentioned in some board comments at a couple meetings ago in regards to African American history being taught from PK through 12th grade. And I would just like the opportunity to kind of speak to that if you can. If it's something that's possible or doable in our current curriculum.
Hey, Norman, it's actually on the agenda. And when we get to the board discussion and updates, if we could.
Sure, that's fine.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Minor, I like the program. The video is pretty nice. And I'm sure that the students really enjoy the physical activity. It kind of breaks up the day and gives them a chance to kind of switch gears and do some other activities. And it looked like the instructors were on top of things too. It's a nice program.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa. We really appreciate your presentation. Thanks for the video. It gives us an opportunity to speak to the Summer Rise program, if anybody asks.
Just one comment. I did get to sit with my grandson one day while he was online doing his Summer Rise, and I was surprised that he knew how to log on. He knew how to go back to home screen because it missed a part. So their ability to adjust to the virtual, at least for him, was really, really good. So it was a good program from what I saw. And they had a box with all of the equipment and all of the tools and utensils that they would need for their lessons.
That's good.
Yeah, and thanks for mentioning that, Mrs. Jeter Freeman, about their ability to adapt to the technology. The young man that was sharing the contents of his STEM kit, that was actually in a homework assignment where they had to videotape themselves doing a mini presentation. So that was a Flipgrid video that he did on his own. So it's amazing what they were able to quickly learn in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Minor. We appreciate the work that you and your department is doing and continue to do. Our next up would be operations, and that would be Mr. Howard.
Good morning, everybody. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. First of all, I want to acknowledge that beautiful family Miss Minor had in the video. I don't know whose kids those were. Pretty lady. I'm sorry.
Mr. Howard, do you want to go get your wife and kids and show them?
No, I'm at the office. So,
all right.
Also, when I saw, I got some feedback. Let me see if I got something going on here. Can you hear me now?
I'm hearing a lot of feedback from you now.
I don't know
we weren't hearing it before.
Right. You were not?
We were not.
You gotta love this technology. How about now?
There's still feedback.
Okay, give me.
Whatever you were doing earlier, do again, because it was perfect when you first came on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Do you still hear the feedback?
No, it just sounds like you're in a really big room, but that's good. Sounds like you're in the auditorium.
So I did put together a little presentation just to kind of give everyone an overview of where operations is at this point. Working with Dr. Cosby and also helping with the transition. I'm really week one back with dealing and working specifically with my team to try to align with the plans that we have set forth with the operations department and the administrators. So I'm going to put a little presentation up here. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
It's opening up now. Okay, great.
So with the time that we have had to work through the transition and actually work with the admin team to set forth the plan for coming back to school, I just kind of put together some highlights of what our goals and what our intent is to support those plans via the operations team. The focal point, of course, would be sustaining through the global pandemic. And what I did is I put together simply three. Can you hear me? I put together simply three questions that our team, that our groups, our folks would be focusing on with regards to where we go from here as we head into the school year. The first being, what will school look like in the fall? Technology, transportation, food service, maintenance, and custodial. How are we ensuring students and staff are working and learning in a safe and healthy environment as we open up the school year? And what are our plans for continued maintenance of school facilities and other district property, including our transportation fleet? So what I did is I focused on those three questions from the standpoint of operations department, with the big overarching concept of what school's going to look like in the fall. What are we going to be expected to do? What are we going to be expected to adhere to as far as guidance and health standards are concerned? So with those three questions, I just put together some summary points to share. The first question: what will school look like in the fall? Technology, transportation, food service, maintenance, and custodial services. So working with the superintendent and the administrative team for preparation of varied scenarios for the opening of school year. One-on-one technology, moving from a classroom court-based model to a single device per student. So I've heard on a couple different occasions folks speaking to the one-to-one. We are in the process of securing and adhering everything we need as far as devices are concerned for a full one-to-one implementation. We just purchased some new devices to supplement many of the live devices that we have in the district. We're using some of those for the summer program. So upon the return, whichever way we go, we are expected and able to supply one device per one student, moving from our current cart-based system. The next step: support and help develop plans for device distribution and maintenance, establishing district-wide connectivity points for students where remote access is needed, student remote access as needed. This was another point, a question that came up that I heard a couple different administrators talk about. If we need to, if we are faced with the ever-present factor of us having to go to a blended learning situation like we did last year, our goal is to be prepared to establish some connectivity points, whether we do it via buses, via cars, via vans, where we can equip those vehicles with access points, with wireless access points, so students will have much broader connectivity. And this specifically would be, places like some of our large apartment complexes, some of our neighborhoods on the south side, so on and so forth, and just throughout the district where that is needed. Transportation, varied and adaptable bus routing that includes modified seating arrangements and possibly staggering routes. So when we determine how we come back, what transportation would look like, and having those conversations, the transportation supervisor has worked several different scenarios, and basically what she's doing is just kind of waiting for us to say, this is what we're going to do, and then she's going to push the button and get those routes and that process together. Establish the standards for cleaning schedules of buses after routes and during pre and post trip inspections. Maintaining the disinfecting, the cleanliness of the bus as kids move on and move off the bus, depending on how they come back. Food service, developing varied and adaptable food delivery methods for meal service to students and staff. Identifying best practices for cleaning and sanitizing food service areas for prep and serving. Developing a process of trash collection during serving that is safe, clean, and efficient. And just, to get in your mindset, whether we do something different in the cafeteria, our kids are eating in the classroom, we have to have a way to ensure that we are keeping the cleanliness of the building up and making sure that we have an adequate trash collection process during those times. Training staff on best practices and new equipment for building, cleaning, and disinfecting, and informing our stakeholders of our developed cleaning process. Once we know specifically how we come back, we want to make sure that we share that information with our community, with our parents, with our kids, just so they know these are the things that we've put in place to ensure that when your kids come into our building, they will come into a clean and disinfected environment. How are we ensuring students and staff are working and learning in a safe and healthy environment as we open up? Refining daily building cleaning schedules and procedures for disinfecting of facilities. Purchasing PPE to ensure staff and students have those safety items readily available for use. We are in the process of purchasing masks, purchasing shields, ionized disinfectant guns. Those are just the guns that you see that come in with an aerosol-based cleaner. Just sanitize the area, sanitize the air. Continuing to work with the Ohio Department of Health and Public Health Data in Montgomery County to monitor state, national health data and use it to make informed decisions about district health and safety concerns. As I shared in a prior meeting, when we got the go-ahead to open the facilities for individual training, we had to have direct conversation with Public Health in Montgomery County. They had to review our processes and procedures. They sent a representative out to talk specifically to our athletic director and to talk to our staff from Good Samaritan Hospital to ensure that we have the processes in place to do the best we can to eliminate some of the risks. We all know that there are some risks, but we did work with them collaboratively. And then everything we do send through them with regard to our processes and procedures. So they have been, Public Health in Montgomery County has been very active in just not Trotwood, but across the county with regards to getting people in buildings, bringing people back, and eliminating as many safety and health risk as possible. And then reinforce those safety and health protocols set forward by those two organizations. What are our plans for continued maintenance? Question 3, as we are doing all of this, this COVID-19 prep and preparation and ensuring that if we bring kids, when we bring kids, how we bring kids and staff back, we're prepared for that. We also have that other daunting task of continuing to maintain our district facilities to ensure that we stay up on our preventative maintenance plans so we don't have backlog costs that magically appear when things start breaking down. Also including budget appropriate capital repairs and improvements and upgrades to the building. Continuing to update our building safety plans and submit them to ODE by May 2021. all of the building safety plans are due for renewal May 2021. So I will start working on those the first of the year to ensure that all of those are up to standard and checked off again. I don't know if you remember, I spoke about this a year or two ago. That's about an 85-page document that we have to put together for each building. And we work with a couple of different entities to get those done and get those submitted. Investigate upgrades to district filtration system and present cost proposal for HVAC systems to ensure safety of air quality being moved through the building as we move forward from COVID-19. So one of the big pushes out there now is for large facilities to update their district filtration systems. There are a lot of different products out there. There are a lot of different pieces of equipment that guarantee 99% of filtration of things like viruses and bacteria, so on and so forth. So we are actively investigating what that looks like for the district, what a cost for each building would look like for something like that. And then that would be something that I would have a conversation with the superintendent about and ultimately bring to the board, because it's not going to be a cheap cost, but it is something that as we move through this pandemic and head towards the future, that will probably be a positive investment for the district, just to encourage and ensure overall health and safety of the folks accessing the buildings. Continue the standard investment to ensure capital repairs and improvements are maintained. Again, that's the same point. Here are some of the projects that we're working on currently for the next 2 years. The ELC HVAC system, the chiller project, which you guys approved a little earlier in the year. Middle school flooring. The gymnasium is at a point now where it needs to be resurfaced. It's roughly about 12 years old, 12 to 13 years old. And it is almost down to the original wood. The paint and the stain is in really bad shape. So we're going to put a little money into that. Asphalt. I've talked about asphalt with you guys before. It's time to start investing some funds into that in the next couple of years, or especially at that high school campus. Folks are going to be walking and they're going to end up disappearing and falling in the hole if we don't start putting some money into that asphalt on the main campus. And there are some patchwork areas at Madison Park and Westbrook that we need to address. I'm sorry. There are some patchwork areas at Madison Park and Westbrook that we need to address. Security camera upgrades. We want to continue upgrading our security cameras. Our security cameras at the elementary buildings. We've got the high school and the middle school project completed. So we're going to continue to work at the middle school buildings to continue to upgrade those cameras to the higher digital images, replacing the old analog cameras. And that was a recommendation made by the Safety Committee and the Ohio Department of the Department of Homeland Security, and we are continuing with that. Fleet replacement for buses. We are on a pause with purchasing buses, but come 2022, 2023, we do need to start reevaluating our fleet and the purchase of buses, and continuing to update our fleet and make sure we have the best information to make those decisions with regards to purchasing versus leasing versus replacement. Food service line upgrades. Continue to evaluate our food service line upgrades to ensure that we're providing the best and most quality opportunities for our young people and staff. We need to do some painting at the middle school and high school, and then ultimately we are going to have to redo the auxiliary gymnasium flooring at the high school because that's the auxiliary gym and it doesn't get as much as we say face time. We put that one after the middle school gym, but it is time to resurface that floor as well. And those projects usually cost anywhere between $5,000 to $18,000, depending on what we get as far as the gymnasium floors. But when you start getting those the wear and tear on those floors, where the paint is almost in the stain and the seal is almost to the point where you can see the wood seams, it's definitely time to time to redo those floors. And then open projects. I brought this to the board on a couple different occasions, and right now I'm sure it's not the time to have that discussion, especially as we move through the COVID pandemic. But it's real important for the board to have some really direct and succinct conversation about what we're going to do with Bob Jarvis Stadium. I talked to you guys about this before. Currently, with the opening of the facilities, we are at the point where the track and the football field are being utilized very sparingly by those community organizations, but we are not allowing anyone in the bleachers. At this point, we have sealed off those bleachers with a couple different products, a couple different pieces of equipment to ensure that nobody's on the bleachers. And we've spoken to those two organizations about that once they start using the facilities, that the bleachers are not available because they just need too much work. And as I stated a few years ago, I'll be asking the board that if we maintain this property over at Bob Driver, that we invest $50,000 to $60,000 into just trying to get that place safe for use. And that's a concern that I've brought to the board on a couple of different occasions. And again, I know there's been so much going on, we haven't had time to circle around back to it. But I just want to make sure everybody understands that is something that's definitely on the operations radar. And then the Broadway property, we have to decide what we're going to do with that. Right now, I think it's in good hands with us with regards to, we have taken it back from the YMCA because they had a change of leadership over here. So we are still cutting and keeping it up. And there's also a structure that was placed on there by the Say Soccer organization. So that structure is now ours as well. And what we've done is we've winterized it, and we will not turn on any water or turn on any other facilities until we need the structure. But again, those are two properties that we do have to maintain because they are liabilities, costs that the district is responsible for. So that's just a discussion point, some things for discussion that I did want to bring up. And then the last slide I have is just, our mindset where we are at operations with regards to what we have going on now with the pandemic. And last year, I kind of pinned the phrase for the district as we got this, and I still believe that. I still believe we do got this. We got a lot of different things that we're dealing with, but my team, we also feel that we got this. We also feel that, we are an integral part of trying to ensure that through this pandemic, that everybody has what they need, everybody is where they need to be, everybody is safe, everybody is healthy, and all of my folks really take pride in that. And what I've done, giving you a couple of quotes from each one of them that they say on a continual basis. We start talking about what we're going to do to ensure that as we head into 2021, we are ready. And Scott Mays, maintenance supervisor, is, well, we are here to pick up the pieces. He says that on a consistent basis. My transportation supervisor, Mr. Kyle, whatever you need, just let me know. We'll be ready to go. Jim Putman, food service supervisor, and as you can see what we've done through the summer, his statement is always, we'll be ready. Luke Folks and Eric Brenner are two network administrators. They always respond with no problem. And if Eric asks me, how you got him in, I know it's about something with regards to the pandemic. Alan Matthews, anytime I ask him for something, it's always sure. And last but not least, the heartbeat of our department, Ms. Ross, and her statement to me is always, what do you need me to do? So with that being said, with that quick summary, my point is simply, we are here to support and do what we need to do. We're really excited about the opportunity to, and I hate to use the term excited, but really interested in the opportunity to see what this statement or this information from the governor over the next week or so is going to kind of be, and that will kind of also give us some more guiding principles and some guiding directions. But we'll be ready when the administrative team and the superintendent and myself and whomever we bring to the table and have a plan to present to the board. I just want to make the board aware and be assured that we're going to do whatever we can to ensure that when folks come back, when kids come back, when students come back, when staff comes back, this place is going to be safe, healthy, and available for learning, because that's ultimately what our focus is. We're here to support the learning of the students. That's all I got. Any questions?
That's a lot. Yeah, we got a lot going on along the lines of maintenance.
I don't know what's more speaking. Say that again, Ms. Moore.
Yeah, I said that's a lot. We have a lot going on with the maintenance, and what we will be looking at for the budget on how we need to go about taking care of some of those things. And we've not forgotten about Bob Howard. Bob, what is it?
Bob
Driver. I'm sorry, Bob Howard. Bob Driver Stadium. It's just with all the impending decisions that the board has had to make and all the changes in the pandemic, it's kind of been put on the back burner, but it is something that we will definitely be in conversation about with the superintendent.
I totally understand that and expect that as well. But I just wanted to just make sure that you guys remember that it is out there. I don't know what is going on with my sound.
Well, thank you. It was a great presentation. Are there any questions from the board? Okay. Being none, we'll move on.
I do have one thing.
Yeah.
It's just housekeeping. If or when you guys go into executive session, we may have to start another Google meeting. I'm texting back and forth with Luke. We are just having some issues with this YouTube stream. So I will let you know via the chat before that. If we have to go into another Google meeting for executive session, I can set that up and send it to the board, the superintendent, and the treasurer. And then you guys can jump on and I can leave, only if we have to go into that executive session and use another Google platform.
Okay. We actually have on the agenda today, if you'd like, after this meeting, we have an executive session listed there. If you want to just give us a quick overview, if that's okay.
Well, you want me to come in to the executive session?
If you could, if you'd like.
Okay, that's fine. Well, yeah, but what I was saying is that we may have to leave this meeting and go into another meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I can set that up. I just need, Luke and I are talking back and forth. There's some issues with YouTube, and I just want to make sure that the stream is stopped. So when we go into executive session, that it is an executive session.
Okay.
So I'll let you guys know.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Howard.
No problem.
All right. Next up, we have Human Resources. Dr. Davis, welcome to Ram Nation and welcome to the team.
Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Howard, if you could stop. Oh,
I'm sorry. You're getting ready to ask Mr. Howard to stop his presentation.
Yep, I'm doing that right now.
I just put together a brief presentation of some of the ideas. Give me 1 second and I'll pull that up. All right. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. And so as we go into my transition, I have had the opportunity to be a part of some email communications, and I was in the office the other day and got to meet some staff. And so as we're looking at my transition, safety is key on everyone's mind, especially our staff members. And so what are the legal implications as we're coming back? Are we doing things to help mitigate the concern? Are we letting them know what our plan is to prevent exposure? And if there is exposure, what is our communication plan? So just being well-versed on what the safety procedures are in the district, communicating that out to staff, and assuring them that it is a safe place for them to return if we do come back face-to-face. By doing that, we allow the staff to come back, and then we can relay any information to them and help with their concerns, because just as we are concerned about safety and exposure, so are they. In conversations I've had with different departments, looking at the areas of responsibility for the Department of Human Resources, I understand they have not been they have been without a director for quite a while. And so responsibilities were shared out, divvied out to different departments, bringing those human resources responsibilities back into our office. And then some things in our office that may not belong there, giving those to the right departments as well. So I look forward to having conversations with our other directors and kind of looking at the different responsibilities and areas that we have and putting things in their right spot. Department morale is key. I understand again that they have not had a director for a while. And so letting them know that I am there, open door policy, there to support them so that we can make our department function well within the district and meet the needs. Moving into day-to-day operations, what are we doing? Where are we in terms of licensure tracking, our backgrounds, and employee relations, any of those activities that are ongoing, anything that need to be brought to my attention. I had the opportunity to meet with Ms. Terry, and she shared a lot of things of what was going on. And so I think I have a good sense of where we are, finding out what's working in our department, what are some areas of improvement that are needed, and what are some things that we can simplify and make easier. In terms of simplification and making things easier, bringing our human resource information systems, that's HRIS, up to the 21st century. And so I've been working with Mr. Howard. I'm happy to say that we are moving forward with a paperless filing system so our employee files can be accessible. If we're working remote and we have to go into the office to get a file, let's say we have another natural disaster and something happens and those documents are destroyed, we have nothing. And so by putting things in an electronic format, we have access to them wherever we are. It's at our fingertips, and our processes do not have to stop just because we are not physically available in the office. Improving the processes, making them a little more streamlined, and so that we have more accountability. We're able to find documents, we're able to give reports readily, and be able to be responsive to the concerns and questions that people have for human resources. In terms of being responsive to concerns, our customer service, making sure that we are providing top-notch customer service to both our internal and our external customers. Improve customer service in terms of our response time, the manner of response. Are we being respectful to whomever? Are we coming at them with a problem-solving approach? If you come to us with a question, we may not have the answer, but we're going to get back with you with the answer within a timely manner, in a respectful manner, and making sure that we're moving things along. Hiring. I understand. I think I do have another slide that talks about current vacancies, but that entire hiring process from determining which vacancies we're going to post to posting those vacancies, what are we doing for recruitment, vetting of those candidates, that interview process, who's doing the interviews, candidate selection, onboarding, and then placement of those staff members into those various positions. I understand that we do have current vacancies right now. I talked to Ms. Terry about some, 3 intervention specialist positions at the high school, 2 school psychologists, and the new director of student services position that was just recently approved. And then looking at that human piece and human capital, that's why I put that in bold. What are the needs of our staff? Our staff have needs in terms of, do they have access to technology like they need? Is their mental health being tended to? What are they going through as they're trying to teach students from home, managing their family and their children who may be home as well, and then having to deal with a class? And so making sure that we're responsive to their needs, we're listening to their concerns and providing that support. Staff retention, as I mentioned, in terms of staff mental health, employee wellness, making sure that there are incentives for them, that they understand that they are needed and we care about them and that we are responsive to their concerns. Staff development, making sure we have PD available to them to meet their needs so that they can support our students. And then working with our educational association to improve that relationship, develop another relationship of trust with the human resource department so that we can move forward. And that's it for me. Any questions?
That was pretty comprehensive for you, since you haven't started yet. Your first is in July, right? But thank you. That's pretty comprehensive. And thank you for working alongside Mr. Howard and Dr. Cosby, making the transition in. I know once you get in, there'll be a lot more hands-on things to learn and to really to uncover. However, that was an excellent presentation of really what we have to look forward to. And I know a lot of that will depend on our decision and how we open schools and what that looks like for next year. So again, thank you so much. Thank you for being here today too. Thank you for being a part of the platform and being a part of the presentations. We're so looking forward to working with you.
Thank you. And Ms. Allen, I haven't had a chance to stop in and talk to you yet, but I'm looking forward to meeting with you soon. And I know a lot of our areas overlap, and so you're going to be critical in helping me get started and moving forward with my department. So thank you in advance for helping me with that.
Look forward to it. Look forward to it.
Yes, ma'am.
Any board comments or questions? Okay, being none, we'll go ahead and we'll move on. Thank you so much, Dr. Davis.
Thank you.
Next, Ms. Allen, Treasurer's update.
Okay, I am. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, let me go to the start. Okay. All right. I'm kind of like Mike today. I'm always going last too. So Mike, I do feel your pain. And obviously when I talk about finances, most people glaze over. So I'll try to do this short and sweet and quick. What I wanted to do, and as I talked to Board President Moore, that the board, I presented the financial updates or financial reports on the last meeting. So this is a really high level overview for the other individuals or administrators that don't normally hear my financial information. So what I wanted to do is just talk about revenue and expenditures, give you some comparison between the 5-year forecast and then a summary. So like I said, it was very short. FY20, this year we were faced, because of the pandemic, the state cut our state foundation funds for FY20 by $306,399. And then we anticipate a 10% cut, about $2.2 million. And this is general fund that I'm talking about. We don't know. We will know obviously more as more information is available for FY22 and 23. Just wanted an FYI for you. Other revenue that we are dealing with, as we were able to get $1.8 million from the federal CARES funding, and keeping in mind $100,000 of that has to go to our non-publics. So it's actually $1.7 million of federal CARES. So we had a really good meeting this past week with Dr. Cosby, Mr. Howard, and Mrs. Minor. And we went, it was 4 hours. So we talked a lot about just money, the budgets, and just different funding streams. And so this is one of the funding streams. This money you can't just spend this money for anything. So it has to be specifically spent toward pandemic type related items. And so this money has been slated for online curriculum, the PD for the blended learning, testing, particular staffing, PPE, and the computer. So as we talk about one-on-one devices, about computers, we do have funding for that. So this federal CARES money, some of the funding can go to buying those particular equipment. This money can be used through September 2022. So that means we don't have to spend all of it in FY21. We can spend some of it the following year. The third money stream is our student wellness and success monies. We received $622,213 this year. We've spent about $400,000, and that was spent on staffing, mental health therapy. We purchased a vehicle to transport our displaced students, and then we gave a $39,000 grant to the Five Rivers Health Center to get them started. We are expected to receive almost $900,000 in FY21, but I'm a little leery about saying we're going to plan for that, but I don't know what the state is going to do in terms of the distribution of monies. So we're hoping that we continue to get that. 76, I want everybody to keep in mind, 76% of our revenue is from the state. And so that is a huge amount that we depend on from the state. And keep in mind that the state's income has been severely affected because of the pandemic. So keep that in mind. I get a weekly, almost every 2 weeks, a budget report from the state, and they are really struggling at this time. So it's going to be really interesting when the governor talks about budget and what's going to look like in FY21. This is one thing that I'm really, really happy about, and I think my finance committee, Mr. Scarce and Mrs. Jeter Freeman, we talk about often every month is we made a good decision last year for open enrollment. So our open enrollment receipts this year so far are $601,000. That equates to about $7,000 per student. That equates to about 85 additional students that we had for open enrollment. So I'm looking for on the money side, guys. I know that there's other sides that you guys have to deal with, but it has been a good financial decision that we made this past year. Also, additional revenue. We do get interest income on our investments every month when I do the financial reports. We do talk about the various investments. So far, we received almost $600,000 in interest income, but I wanted to just make everyone aware that because of the pandemic, I'm predicting about half of that we won't see because now the rates are low. But on the other hand, as Mr. Scarce said to me at our finance committee meeting, this is a good time to invest because as the interest rates go back up, we can make money. Expenditures for FY20. Our salaries have decreased from last year by about $603,000. A lot of the salaries were switched over to grant-funded positions. So we're looking at that for FY21 to make sure that those dollars spent in the grants are spent correctly or the way that we should be spending that. Our benefits increased by $486,000 from last year. And one of the primary reasons for that was because we signed an MOU with the union, a one-time MOU with the union, giving everyone that had a family premium, medical family premium, $720 because we had a 26% increase in our premiums last year. And to mitigate that increase, we, as a district, decided to do that. This year, luckily, and very proudly, our premiums this year are only 7.5% increase. So that's a huge difference between last year and they were 26%. Our supplies and material costs were reduced by almost, $467,548. And that was because we closed schools in March and some of the costs that we had estimated for supplies and materials, we did not have to purchase. The oops, I got one more. The capital outlay decreased by $610,000 from the year prior, and that was due to not purchasing as many buses as the year before. Open enrollment dollars, you have a income and then you have an expenditure. So I wanted to put this in the slide so we can understand this, that the open enrollment dollars from this year was $682,000 going out. That net effect was $82,000 overall. In FY18, we spent $557,000 total as a net. So you can see that, like I said, the decision that we made for open enrollment was huge. We also, for community schools, that was decreased by $365,000 because we are starting to get some of the kids or some of the students coming back from those community schools. And then the supplies and material costs, as I talked about before, were reduced. This is just a comparison. I wanted you guys to look at this, and I did it through June 19th. We have a finance meeting on Thursday, to with the board next Thursday with the board that will go through the whole year, but I was able to at least let everyone know as of yesterday what things look like. So our revenue, our May forecast, we filed, our revenue was $41.2 million. Fiscal year to date, we received 41.3. So we have $152,000 more than what we thought we were going to have. Expenditures, our May forecast 44.8. Fiscal year to date is 40.7. Keep in mind that the payroll just that happened on June 19th is not booked yet, but right now variance is $4.1 million. Outstanding encumbrances, we say we like the purchase orders. This is general fund. We like to have that down at about 100,000. Now we have 134,000, and we're still working on that, but we're just almost there at $34,000 difference. Beginning cash balance is the same. So our unencumbered cash balances looks like at this point, and this will change, and the board will see the difference on next Thursday. Right now, it looks like we have $4.2 million more than what we had anticipated. So my last slide is a summary to keep in mind again about the 76% that the state resources represent, which is a significant area of risk to our revenue. We just have to always keep in mind that we have to continue to right size our district to align with our overall resources. Our budgets we've been working on, we have to make sure that they align to our 5-year forecast. And as we get more financial information, we will adjust the forecast and the budgets to that. And then I just said, as a pandemic, and everybody said that earlier, that this is a new normal. I've learned things that I kind of laugh. Now I know how to even present like this because before I didn't. So I've even learned a lot of things working occasionally from home. So this is just an opportunity for all of us to do things that are a little different. So, and that was it for me.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Allen. Very good. Very good summary. I'm finding out more about finance than I ever thought that I would. And I appreciate that. Any board comments from Ms. Allen? Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on. If it's okay, if you guys are okay with not taking a quick break, because we're almost done, if that's okay with the group, we can move right into the board discussion item, one item. And that's the item that Mr. Scaris brought up in one of our, I think it was at our last regular meeting, which is the African American history. Yeah, and Lisa, I know that you were going to comment on grades PK through 12 along the lines of maybe some possibilities for including that in our curriculum.
Yes, we do currently have an African American history course that is offered at the high school. So we've been discussing bringing African American history to the earlier grades. And during the winter, when we were able to go to Dallas to present at the Black Educators Conference, we were able to meet a young man named Brandon Brown, who's been in education about 10 years, but he has a master's in education with a specialty in using music to teach African American history. And so we purchased some of his work and we presented it, brought him to Trotwood to present concerts, mini concerts and performances for our K-5 students. And it was a big hit. We've got principals on the line who actually participated in that. We actually have a lot of his material. We can integrate that into our music program right now. And that could be a start to make sure. And I was trying to think of what's the quickest way all children would have access. And I'll even say K-8 because our middle schoolers would really love it. And it teaches history, African American history through music, rap, and it's very, very engaging. And I would consider that phase one. It's a way we can, during the 2021 school year, bring that to Trotwood. But I'd like to have focus group or professional learning community meet throughout the year to research and even better to enhance the African American history as a more formalized course in the future, a year to prepare and research what are some of the best things out there. But for this year, we can kick it off by integrating it into our music, knowing that we may have a blended learning or times when kids are learning from home. We've done the music from home, so we know it can work. And, you all would, I know the children would really be engaged in this curriculum that we've already purchased.
Hey, Lisa, is that when we were in Dallas and we stopped past that vendor, is this the vendor that you're talking about with all the African American history?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. It was excellent. I mean, it's something that you each might even want for your own homes because it was very, very, very specific for the eras, and it left no stone uncovered. And I remember you buying that kit. So excited about you sharing that with the rest of the board and looking at how we can use that. It would be fun with this blended learning environment too.
Oh, definitely. Yes. It's perfect for that. So that's why. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Scarce. I'm sorry.
No problem. I'm sorry. The African American history course that's offered in the high school, is that an elective or is that a requirement for graduation?
It's actually an elective right now.
Okay. Is there any possible way we could move that, or can a conversation be had about making that required for graduation?
Yes, and that's why I say phase one would be us bringing, of course, the African American history to all students. But I think for the year of learning and research, that's something we want to work with the high school team about. How would that look? How would that look specifically? And the possibility moving forward, we might not be able to quickly make it a requirement for this upcoming year, phase two. That's possible.
Okay, but it is possible.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Minor, I like your idea and the phase one with incorporating the music. I agree with Norman. I would like to see, and that's why I'm interested in listening about your plans on trying to gather information and come up with a plan to make Black history a part of the curriculum, a formal part of the curriculum. And I think you touched on it. I would like to see that even extended down at least through the middle school as well, and probably at some point as we go through the years, it be moved on down so that it becomes a part of our curriculum. Period. It was interesting as they were doing the march through Trotwood that they interviewed Rap Hankins, and one of the things he mentioned was that Trotwood is the largest minority majority community in the state of Ohio, and so I think that gives us an opportunity to do something that might be for a lot of people kind of groundbreaking in terms of incorporating our history and contributions as part of our curriculum for our students. I think everybody needs to know it, but I think it's really important for our students. And because it's bothered me down through the years that most schools, regardless of their racial makeup, have this course as not as a requirement, but it's something they can take. And it's kind of distressing to me to see how many of our people, our young people, choose not to and walk out without knowing. And as I say, it's kind of hard to make progress for yourself and for everybody else if you don't know where you've been. So I like these ideas, and hopefully we'll be able to implement them.
Can I add?
Go ahead.
As we're thinking about phase one, could we also embed it
in the novels that we do in the language arts department. I think we tried to be intentional about the novels we were reading, but that can be a great place, as you said, bring it down to the middle school. Maybe we start to decide what books we're reading when we read those novels. We can start to be intentional about adding some history and some cultural components throughout the novels that we select.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Gibson, because we, as you know, with the middle school and all the libraries, we've invested in a wealth of a plethora of culturally relevant not textbooks, but novels and storybooks for the children. At the middle school, 3 years ago, we purchased Alfred Tatum's collection. Anyone who knows Alfred Tatum, he's an expert in educating the Black male. And so we would strongly encourage those. We can add to those collections, but we strongly encourage the teachers to be encouraged to use all of those resources that we've purchased. And we were very intentional on making sure they were culturally relevant to our community. So we're excited about it. We talked as a team when the concept came up of the wonderful opportunity to bring African American history to all students. And we realized that although we are an African American community, a lot of times kids don't see value in themselves. And we want to bring value to themselves so they are confident when they leave and go out into the world. But even those that are not African American, what difference would it have made if some of these police officers had value in African Americans as they interacted? What difference would it have made if they had learned that from a child, the value of all cultures? So we're excited about it, and we thank the board for bringing this up as a topic.
When you talk about the required reading, one of the things when my oldest child attended high school at Trotwood in 9th grade, one of the required reading books was Huckleberry Finn. And we were not allowing him to read that book. He did not read it. None of our children read Of Mice and Men, of any of those books. In fact, I happened to run across a letter at that time I wrote to the board saying that those books and the words in those books did not uplift our Black children. And so I know my son read The Miseducation of the Negro, and my other children read other books. But we actually went and sat in on that English class with that then teacher to ask those students, how do you feel about reading this book? You know, the predominance of the class was Black. You're reading a book that has the word that now we don't even say, we call it now the N word, but the book had it in there. So it's being that intentional about looking to make sure that what we allow them to read also is uplifting. So that's been a pet peeve of mine now for, my oldest son is 42, for some time.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. I really appreciate your comments. Any other comments for Lisa? Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and move to the superintendent comments as we close.
Okay, I just wanted to say I'm so excited about how well this team, all of us as a team, we are all on one voice. It sounds like we have a lot of the same concerns and interests, and now we understand things that have to go into the decisions that we make, you know, getting that input from everyone, trying to make practical, but decisions that are the best for everyone. And when you talk and listen to everybody from their different departments, you get to see how people are impacted in a different way. And so it is very important that we do a lot of communicating with one another, that we are, again, all on one page. But this has been excellent. President Moore, I think you had a good idea, or the board did, and to move forward with this, even though we wouldn't be able to be in the same room together. It felt like we were in the same room together. And even though it did take the time, we were hoping maybe it wouldn't have taken most of this time, but it was all very enlightening and interesting. And I can see how at some point doing this type of work, even for students, allows them to be focused on what's going on. So I've really enjoyed it. Thank you, team. You guys, 2 weeks in and you make me look like I really know what I'm doing. I appreciate that. So that was all I'd like to say. Just want to thank everybody, and thank you, board, for giving us this opportunity to share.
Thank you, Dr. Cosby. And it's interesting because the board always wants to make sure that we are connected with our team, and these retreats are so important. It's a lot of extra work, but trust me, it's well worth it. Next, some board comments. Mr. Andrews?
Okay. I think that there's a couple things. One, there is I'm sure everybody's probably kind of aware of it now, the housing development, the newest one that has been up there for a few years now on Westbrook, right below the golf course. I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, they're building houses back in there again. You kind of familiar where I'm talking about, everyone?
Wolf Creek Road.
Thank you. Yes, they're building houses in there again, and it's a different developer. And I was over there the other day just kind of nosing around and met with the a person, I guess, for lack of a better term, say the salesperson or sales manager. And she had asked me specifically for some material and memorabilia, that kind of thing, from Trotwood schools, because I guess they want to use some of that as they decorate the model houses and things. So what I had done was I had left her the number for the high school and also for Mr. Russo as contact people to for her to talk with about getting some of those kind of materials to put on display in these model homes. So that was one thing. Also, as we talk about putting together a statement by the district to address the current unrest and conditions in the country, I think whatever we decide on, however we decide to do it, I think it should be something that is pretty comprehensive about not just what's going on, but how we want to move forward as a district in this climate, and making our students sensitive and aware and what their responsibilities are and things in this as well. So I think those are my two things for the moment that I can think of. Oh, and one other thing, and the options for how we're going back to school, is it a possibility of having the students go to school like a 2 week on, 2 week off kind of model? And I'm thinking in terms of like Patterson Co-op back in the day, going to school 1, 2, or 3 days a week and then off and like that. I'm not sure how effective that might be in terms of continuity. I think that's real important with our kids in terms of their learning process. So continuity in the environment, I think, is really important. Where I'm currently working, they do something with 1, 2, and 3 days, or 1 day out and 4 days in, and then switching up things. And I'm not sure that it's particularly effective with them. And I think it would really be a problem for our kids. So I would like to see us consider maybe a model where they're going to school for consecutive weeks and then maybe off for that same number of weeks, that kind of thing. And in terms of testing the kids, we need to look at the possibility of having different age groups come in, different entries, with someone there that can actually test the kids to make sure that they are legitimately healthy enough to be in school. Asking people to test on their own, and they may not have the equipment and materials at home. It may be a thing of how you feel today. I feel okay when, in you go. And so if we had, let's say, like the 9th grade come in a door and someone there to test all of them, 10th grade another door, it would make it a little more streamlined in terms of getting people in fairly efficiently, and also have an opportunity to test them wash hands. If they need masks, if we have those available, then we can do all that and get everybody in a fairly timely manner and ensure that as they're coming in, they're going to be well enough to be there, and everybody's going to be safe enough for everybody that's coming to be there. And I think that's kind of what I had.
I would also speak to what you said about the consecutive on and off weeks. We definitely will look at that as an option and do weigh the pros and cons. Some people do that and they call that year-round learning, like you're in for so many weeks and then you're off for so many, a couple of weeks or whatever it is. And so that is something we could look at as a way to maybe have people go home, get that 2-week break, and then come back and maybe they can determine whether or not they're healthy. So definitely we will, consider that and go through that process. And we appreciate also your ideas about potential testing in a different way so that we do it and not just depend on parents, because you're right. Sometimes they may just feel like if they ask and the kid says, I feel good, that's good enough, but it may not be.
Yes, and like I say, they may not even have the materials at home
right.
to do the testing. It's a little. What I use here is a little a gun that's actually used to measure temperature in rooms, and they're about $15-$20 a piece. But that's $15 or $20, and everybody may not have it. And then there, of course, just like everything else, there was a run on them at the stores too, and so it made them kind of maybe less accessible. In terms of the 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off thing, I didn't mean that literally. I don't mean that they go home and do nothing. They would just be students would be in school for 2 weeks, and then they would be doing virtual learning or online learning at home for 2 weeks. And that would allow, I'm thinking it will allow teachers to have contact with the students personally as they come into school, and they can also go home and continue lessons and come back and get that reinforcement that they might need in person and all those kind of things. So that's kind of what I was.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I had to move inside. My yard people decided to come in the middle of this meeting. All right, next, Mr. Scares. Any comments?
I do have a few. Thank you very much. I believe there's a tremendous blessing on the way for every single person that struggles with their attention span, like me, who sat on this call. But thank you very much to Dr. Cosby, and welcome to Dr. Davis. I am privileged to be able to have the conversation about incorporating African American history in our curriculum in a predominantly Black community and a predominantly Black school district. I think that is very, very important and advantageous for the well-being of everybody that comes through Trotwood-Madison City Schools, whether it's staff or student. I do also realize that there is going to be a vast number of opinions about what we do in regards to coming back to school. I personally feel like we do need to come back to school 100% in the fall, but it is not because I don't feel compassionate or care for the safety of our children or our families. I just realize that our number one priority is to educate, and we should not be making the decisions for families about what they decide to do with their children. If we are open 100% in the fall and a family decides that it is not best for them to send their child to school, then as a district, we also need to be prepared to accommodate them. And so while I'm not, by any means disregarding anybody's idea about
Mr. Scares, did we lose you? Am I the only one not hearing Mr. Scares?
Yeah.
I don't hear him either.
Okay. I think we may have lost him. He must have hit a dead spot.
Yeah, because it looks like he's not muted.
I'll come back.
Yeah, he's not muted, but we can't hear him. And so, okay, we'll give him a couple minutes if it's okay with the group. That's probably not a place he wanted to be muted, because he was making a very valid point.
He may not even know that we can't hear him.
Well, you're probably right, because he's probably still talking. I'll send him a quick text, let him know we can't hear him. And we'll go ahead and let's move on to Ms. Freeman. And Mr. Scarce can always come back and finish up if that's the pleasure of the board.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Ms. Freeman?
I don't think I had anything other than what we already talked about. To welcome Dr. Cosby and Dr. Davis, and to thank our principals and administrators, Ms. Minor, for coming out and spending time this morning with us. Good to see the grandbaby, and good to see our principals. I do miss you all. I miss our DLT meetings. So, but I think it was a really good session.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Next, Madam Vice President.
Yes. Okay. I learned a lot today, and it seems like everyone else has been learning a lot too, just kind of getting through everything and making their way through it, which is fantastic. Thanks. It's been rough for all of us. I did wonder what role the health center would be playing in all of this. I don't know that I heard anything about how the health center will be, I don't know, maybe taking the temperatures or being around for all of that. So I was curious about that. I echo what Mr. Andrews and what Mr. Scarce say as it relates to possibly being a flagship of sorts as we think about making Black World Studies a requirement. I think that's the biggest part of this, is making it a requirement here in Trotwood, a Black community. So I think that would be fantastic. I think it was Ms. Minor who said it, when we think about those officers, had they had that kind of background in Black World Studies, perhaps their actions would be different or would have been different. So it's a good study, it's something for everyone. Everyone needs to know about Black World Studies. So I love that idea as it being a requirement. And then also, as we were talking, I was wondering, I think it was also Ms. Minor, as she was talking about the survey, or maybe it was a focus group, if there would be parents who would just not want to come back and would prefer for their students just to have virtual education only, because, perhaps there are parents who are like, what, I don't care what you guys do. You can have blended, you can have them all come back. I just don't want my kid to come back. And, if that were an option for parents, if they just only want online, or would we offer just an only online kind of option? That's all I had. Those are my questions.
Ms. Bozeman, that's a great question. And I know that Mr. Scarce is joining us now, and he wants to pick up where it's off, if that's okay. But very good questions. I know things are still up in the air, and there's still a lot of conversations and feedback that's coming in from the surveys. Right now, I think that all conversations, Cosby, we are entertaining all of that, correct? All right. You're up.
All right, thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I do apologize about that. Mrs. Bozeman actually kind of touched on what I said, or what I thought I was saying to everybody in regards to coming back this fall. I am, and I believe the opinions are, broad in this area, but I do believe that we need to open up school 100% in the fall and leave those decisions about whether or not kids come back to those respective families. I don't feel like that's something that's a decision that we need to make for them, but they need to make for themselves. We just need to be prepared to offer an online or virtual option for those families that do not feel comfortable bringing their children back to school. But I think we need to be reminded that our number one priority is to educate children. Everything else, regardless about how we feel about it, I think is an additive on top of our main responsibility, which is to educate children. And I have complete faith and trust in our staff and our operations to do the absolute best to make our environments safe and clean. And I think that our staff is just as essential as doctors and nurses are. And I have complete trust and faith that they can do a very, very good job at making sure that our children are educated, whether they decide to come into the building or if their families decide that, they need to stay home and be educated virtually. So that's kind of where I am. I know that we're still looking at many, many options, but I would definitely support a 100% coming back in the fall and allowing families to make the decisions whether or not their children will come back. So thank you very much.
Mr. Scarce, we appreciate your comments. In closing, I just want to say thank you for everybody who took the time out today to join us for our first virtual retreat. Give yourselves a hand. Everybody did so well. The presentations were awesome. You guys are awesome. The conversation was rich and I learned a lot on this platform. And thank you guys for educating the board and bringing us up to speed on the work that you're doing in the district. Thank you, Dr. Davis, for joining our team. We're so excited. Thank you for being here. Dr. Cosby, first retreat, first meeting, first 2 weeks, first, everything. Tremendous approach to starting because you just jumped in even prior to getting started. We appreciate that. Along the lines in the discussion of how the district opens, it's going to be an ongoing conversation. And I don't truly believe that how we start is going to be how we finish either. With things that are constantly changing, and it's changing not just locally, it's changing internationally. There are a lot of new directives. There are a lot of new things that are happening every single day. There are a lot of new projections on what is to happen. We could decide, yes, we're going to come back 100%. And the governor could say next week, nobody's coming back. So again, there's a lot of things that are still hinging on what is yet to come. I think having a solid plan, and I like what Mr. Scarra said, I like what Ms. Bozeman said, it can look like many things for many people. And I think that is why we're looking at doing the surveys. This whole coming back and opening up is going to be a hybrid. That's what I see. I see the parents who say, no, my kid's not coming back, period. So we have to accommodate those kids because we are in the business of teaching and learning and educating kids. And then I can see the parents that say, I want to come back. I want my kids in school. Well, guess what? We got to accommodate those kids in a way that's safe. First, safe. I know my opinion is going to vary maybe from some of my counterparts, but we can't teach kids if they're sick. And we can't have sick staff. Okay. And we have to protect people along the lines of how we go about educating. I know there's lots of different ways to do that. Closing schools is not an option that any of us want. We didn't want to close when they made us close. However, like I said, I think with the team that we have in place, with the multiple ways of learning year-round school, 3 days here, 2 days here, Ms. Bozeman in your university, you guys have somewhat of a blended learning, correct? Yeah, so that model can you speak to that?
Well, yeah. We're doing blended and remote. So yeah. For instance, I'm still teaching like maybe my 8:00 class. I'm just teaching it from home live, so you can choose whether it's blended or remote. And that's just what it is. That's all, that's it, or online, fully online. Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe because we have such creative geniuses on our team it's online. And guess what, Mr. Scarce, those doors are open. Okay. And Mr. Scarce, you made a really great point at one of our work sessions. You talked about utilizing our community as it takes a village. It's part of a family, using churches and the classrooms that they have in the space that's available throughout our city, because you know what, if it's about social distancing and we can make the whole city a classroom because there are rooms in churches and other capacities, even at the community center, we would just be thinking a little bit differently about how we bring our students back together so that they're safe, so that we're teaching and they're learning, and again, we're educating kids. So I just see so many different things. And I see also an opportunity, again, like this platform for us, I see the same platform for other advisory groups, Dr. Cosby, because this is not really a board decision. I mean, when the governor said it'll eventually be left up to the local boards, I'm like, no, that's not a board decision. That is a community decision. That is a district decision. That is based on families. And again, you'll bring all those recommendations to us as a collective group. We'll look at each and every one of them, and then ultimately we'll make a decision, but it is not our decision. It's a consensus. It's in the best interest of students. It's in the best interest of staff. It's in the best interest of families and the best interest of the future of the district. Because like I said, I'm in prayer every day that COVID-19 will go away. All right. But while we're learning to live with it, and it hasn't, we just make the next necessary tweaks to live with it in the most normal way that we can, but foremost by keeping ourselves, our families, our students, staff, everybody safe, and being intentional and deliberate. And I know all districts aren't doing that, but we're not all districts. And so again, I think it's just a case by case and maybe a quarter by quarter. Given that, I now want to move into executive session. And in executive session, we'll have the board and we'll have the superintendent. Mr. Howard, we also like you to stay for the executive session.
Okay,
right?
We're good to stay on. Yeah, we're good. Once you
Okay.
talk, we can shut it down.
Okay, well, what I'll do is let me go ahead and call for the motion. And the motion is to enter into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual per Board of Education Policy 0166 and ORC 121.22 G1 and B to discuss details relative to the security arrangements and emergency response protocols for a public body or a public office per ORC 121.22 G6. Official action may be taken. May I have a motion?
So move.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions? Being none, Ms. Allen, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Scarce,
Yes.
Mrs. Bozeman,
Yes.
Mr. Andrews,
Yes.
Mrs. Jeter Freeman,
Yes.
and Ms. Moore.
Yes, motion passes. We will now enter into executive session at 12:46 p.m. I want to say thank everybody for joining us. We appreciate you. We appreciate your time. Thanks, and have a great rest of the weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.